Chapter 381 Battle with the Strange Bauhinia. Looks like it, someone replied blankly with a nod. Who was that guy just now? No idea, but he didn't seem to take any of the treasures. As the last voice fell, everyone looked at each other, then erupted into deafening cheers. The crowd surged toward the flower bed. Don't fight over it. Let's split the treasure evenly, someone with reason shouted. Split it? Forget it. Whoever grabs it, owns it. Everyone rushed toward the flower bed. The shrubs around the bed were pushed aside. People looked at the herbs inside, each of them beaming with joy. Even their heartbeats quickened. Immortal flower, longevity vine. There were countless rare herbs here. As everyone poured into the flower bed and scrambled to grab them, that strange bauhinia in the center began to change. Its 4 petals originally showed for expressions: joy, anger, sorrow, and resentment. Normally, 3 of the expressions would stay hidden. Only the expression of resentment remained dominant. But now, as more and more people flooded in, black mist began to spread around the bauhinia. The expression of resentment started shifting toward anger. The surrounding black mist thickened, and faint screams could be heard within. But the people fighting over herbs had gone mad. They fought each other with no care for the flower's change. As the black mist grew dense enough, a sharp and cruel scream suddenly rang out. Then a blanket of black mist covered everything. The entire flower bed was engulfed. Those who were touched by the mist screamed in agony. The black mist corroded them like acid, melting them away. From flesh to bone, almost nothing remained. The people in the flower bed couldn't even escape. As the mist closed in, they were completely dissolved. After a long while, the black mist began to shrink, regathering at the bauhinia's location. The flower bed fell silent. The people who were there had vanished. Suzumo had seen everything clearly from a distance. That black mist meant instant death. No one knew what it was. It was deeply strange. He stepped through the air, approaching the edge of the flower bed. The flower petals had calmed again, with the expression of resentment once more taking the lead. Suzumo summoned the puppet of Mad Blood Demon. He sent it into the center of the flower bed to probe. Mad Blood Demon, surrounded by a powerful holy aura, walked forward with overwhelming force. With a boom, endless spirit force gathered around him. When he entered the flower bed, the bauhinia let out a sharp scream, and the petal showing anger lit up. Countless faces emerged from the black mist. Their veins bulged, teeth bared. Each one looked furious. Black energy surged from the sky, rushing toward Mad Blood Demon. He didn't back down. Behind him, a blood-red river surged forth. Waves crashed against the shore, bloody and murky, carried countless terrors within. With a loud boom, an explosion erupted in the black mist, and the power of his Empyrean Meridian realm spread out. He forcefully broke through the strange bauhinia's seal. Stepping through the air, he arrived in front of the flower. Grabbing the base of the petals with both hands, he pulled hard, trying to rip the flower out by the roots. But the flower seemed to be connected to the earth itself. No matter how much force Mad Blood Demon used, he couldn't move it at all. His face turned red from effort. After a while, he retreated cautiously. Suzumo frowned slightly from the side. This flower seemed to still be in its juvenile stage, too strong to kill outright. But trying to obtain it might be beyond human ability. At that moment, the flower's petals began to tremble. The angry petals started shifting toward joy. The black mist around the flower faded, and red mist began to appear. The red mist had a bloody scent, like fresh blood. Unlike the corrosive black mist, the red mist seemed hallucinogenic. When Mad Blood Demon was shrouded by it, he froze completely. Motionless. Suzumo frowned. He couldn't see what the puppet was experiencing. But at that point, Mad Blood Demon had already lost control, no longer under Suzumo's command. Soon after, the red mist began to dissipate, and Mad Blood Demon became eerily calm. He slowly turned around, his eyes now blood-red. Then, without hesitation, he charged at Suzumo. He got reverse-controlled, Suzumo said with a shake of his head. A beastly roar rang out from the side, and the massive figure of Chaos descended. With one slap, it suppressed Mad Blood Demon. Though he struggled fiercely, it was no use. "Master, let me try," Chaos said in a low voice. "All right. Restrain it. Don't touch it," Suzumo said. "I want to test a theory." Chaos leapt into the flower bed, his body radiating waves of immortal energy. His enormous wings unfolded behind him, stirring up a raging storm toward the strange Bauhinia. The storm swept across the sky, clouds rolling. But the Bauhinia remained calm. Two of its petals awakened, black mist merging with red mist, together rushing toward Chaos. "Keep it restrained," Suzumo shouted from outside the flower bed. At that moment, his aura surged, and his true fate appeared behind him. A blue planet slowly rose into the sky. Chaos let out a cold snort, and a vast, deep black hole appeared on his abdomen. This was his innate divine power. The edge of the black hole crackled with fire and lightning. Then a beam of light shot from it, trying to disperse the mist ahead. Suzumo's true fate world rumbled. Countless branches slowly spread out from the blue planet. They moved with incredible speed. They wrapped around the strange Bauhinia in the center of the flower bed, trying to uproot it completely. These branches were from the Tree of Life in Suzumo's true fate world. It was rooted in the God world, carrying supreme power, aiming to rip the Bauhinia out. At that moment, as the branches exerted force together, the flower's body began to shake. It was the first time it showed panic. Chapter 382, Subduing the Bauhinia. The Bauhinia was trembling. The mighty power of the Tree of Life flowed through every branch. As the branches thundered loudly, cracks began appearing in the ground where the strange Bauhinia stood. The cracks spread in all directions, widening more and more. At that moment, the Bauhinia let out sharp screeches. All four petals awakened. For different colored black mists gathered, spreading from the petals onto the branches of the Tree of Life. The branches of the Tree of Life began to wither at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the symbol of life, the Tree of Life would not give in. Rich life force surged from its core. The branches trying to pull the Bauhinia up began to change strangely. They shifted rapidly between decay and vitality. What shocked Suzumo was that the death aura from the Bauhinia could actually rival the life force of the Tree of Life. Just think, what kind of existence was the Tree of Life? There was only one in the entire world. It was the foundation of the entire plant system Suzumo had established. Its life force was rarely seen in the world. And now he had found something that could rival it. Suzumo was truly surprised. In all his knowledge and everything recorded in ancient texts, there was absolutely no mention of such a Bauhinia. And this floating island was part of the ruins from the Blessed Epic. So this Bauhinia must be a remnant of that epic. Suzumo thought of the books he'd found in the cave, left behind by the Taoist Qingfeng, books passed down from the Blessed Epic. He would need to study them carefully when he had time. But right now, the Tree of Life and the strange Bauhinia were locked in a stalemate. It wasn't a situation Suzumo wanted to see. Fortunately, he had enough cards up his sleeve and had no need to fear. His true fate, the God world, appeared behind him. The blue planet slowly rotated. From it, the pure moon altar flew out. The altar was golden, radiating a soft, sacred light. At that moment, strands of purifying light, like moonlight, spread down from it. The altar had 5 levels. The first 4 were carved with flowers, trees, birds, and beasts. Only the 5th level was a blank haze of gray mist, with a flicker of purple light hidden within. Suzumo controlled the pure moon altar, spirit force surging around him. A purple light from the 5th level shot out, shining on the strange Bauhinia. The light was brilliant and deep, carrying the aura of an ancient era. As the purple light shone on the Bauhinia, it tried to purify it. But unfortunately, the flower's evil aura was too strong. It actually started devouring the purple light. Suzumo frowned slightly. He had never seen something so hostile. At this point, he no longer tried to purify the flower. Instead, he used the altar and the tree of life to suppress it. With the pure moon altar's purifying power, the tree of life gradually gained the upper hand. Its branches grew more vibrant with life energy. Bit by bit, it pushed out the death aura of the Bauhinia. Then it began to pull the flower out, root and all. Thunderous booms spread underfoot. The ground cracked with countless fissures. Black mist surged around the Bauhinia, and sharp, chilling screams rang out from it, the sound growing louder, almost as if it were terrified. Finally, after more than a full day of this tug-of-war, the tree of life succeeded in yanking the Bauhinia out from the ground completely. What surprised Suzimo was that the flower was much larger than it had appeared. Its roots stretched dozens of meters long, buried deep underground. The root was divided into 6 segments, each a different color. 4 of them glowed brightly. The other 2 were dull, as if still in incubation. Once the flower was fully uprooted, it suddenly shot off into the distance, trying to escape. But Suzimo had been prepared. The blue planet behind him fell from the sky at light speed, so fast the flower didn't even have time to react. It was swallowed into Suzimo's True Fate world. Now, inside the True Fate world, the Bauhinia looked around in confusion at its new surroundings. It furiously tore at the surrounding space, trying to escape. The space around it split open as it jumped between dimensions. Suzimo entered his True Fate world as well. He stood high above in the sky, watching the flower's futile struggle like a trapped beast. In this world, Suzimo was a god, a creator. He could decide life or death with a thought. As he waved his right hand, endless world force surged down like a tidal wave. This was the force of this world. Unless one broke through space itself and truly transcended this world, one could not resist it. Just like the martial artists on the primordial heartlands who spent lives chasing the 12 meridian path to transcendence. Without transcendence, one could never oppose the world itself. As the force descended, the space around the flower was completely sealed. A small region was crushed under its weight. The Bauhinia, which moments ago had been so fierce, now lay pinned in place, unable to move at all. But even now, Suzimo still didn't understand what this Bauhinia really was, or what it could do. As the world force roared like a river from the sky, the flower suddenly stopped resisting. Just like before, its dozens of meters-long roots anchored themselves into the ground. Suzimo felt sure this flower was extraordinary. Now that he had it suppressed using the power of the world, he could take his time figuring things out later. He left his True Fate world. Back in the flower bed, he gathered up all the remaining mysterious herbs. He had explored most of this island already. It had been over 3 days since he arrived. Suzimo figured it was time to return. He didn't know what others had gained, but just in this flower bed alone, at least 1/3 of the martial artists who came to the island had perished. As Suzimo stepped through the air to the island's edge, he saw the Ning clan's ship just about to depart. Small groups had already returned. Suzimo stepped onto the water, as if walking on air. Ripples spread beneath his feet as he entered the ship. Looking around, he saw that the ship was noticeably quieter than before. It seemed the number of martial artists who had died on the island was significant. Once the crowd was assembled, the ship set sail, heading back to the northern continent. Chapter 383, Conflict on the Ship. The ship sailed across the endless sea, heading toward the distant continent. After several days of snowfall, the weather had finally cleared. The sun came out, and temperatures began to rise. Some of the ice that had formed on the sea surface was beginning to melt. The ocean stretched endlessly in blue, and the sunset hung on the distant horizon. The evening glow turned half the sky red, with clouds like flames burning across the heavens. From afar, it looked as if the entire sky was on fire. For the past few days, Suzimo had stayed mostly inside his cabin, rarely going out. That day, while he was in seclusion, he heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, he saw one of the ship's guards standing outside. The ship was controlled by a clan called the Ning clan. To guard against sea monsters and maintain order, the ship was heavily staffed with Ning clan guards. "What is it?" Su Zimo asked. "Our Ning clan's second elder requests everyone on deck for an announcement," the guard said calmly. Su Zimo nodded slightly and followed the guard to the deck. When he arrived, he saw that almost all the passengers on the ship were already gathered. At the front stood an old man in a bright red robe. He had a short brown beard and was balding, but his face looked full and rosy, giving off a wealthy appearance. Once all the passengers were assembled, the old man turned slowly and spoke loudly with a smile. "Allow me to introduce myself. I'm the second elder of the Ning clan. Most of you should already know that." "Elder Ning, what did you call us here for?" someone nearby asked with confusion. "Oh, nothing too serious. Just wanted to discuss what happened on that floating island," the red-robed elder replied with a smile. "That floating island was discovered by our Ning clan's ship. Logically, that means it should belong to us. All of you went onto the island to take things. That doesn't seem quite right, does it?" Hearing this, many people frowned. A large man in black stepped forward and said with displeasure, "What are you trying to say, Elder Ning? We boarded the island with your permission. You said you'd wait 3 days for us. And besides, floating islands have always been part of the endless sky sea. Since when did it become your property?" The elder in red smiled again. "No need to get agitated. We Ning clan folk are reasonable. Everyone just hand over what you found on the island. If we don't need it, you can take it back for free. If we do want something, we'll trade for it with something of equal value. How's that?" After his words, people below began whispering, some visibly wavering. "Think of it as building a relationship with the Ning clan," the elder continued. "I object," came a voice as a man in green robes stepped forward. He carried a broad sword on his back, and his long hair nearly covered his cheeks. A black band tied across his forehead. His eyes were sharp like an eagle's. "What others do is their business," the green-robed man said flatly. "But what I found is exactly what I need, so I won't be handing it over." "Seems like you don't quite understand," the elder in red replied calmly. "I'm not negotiating. I'm offering a better option." As he spoke, he clapped his hands. Nearly 100 guards emerged from the side of the deck. They surrounded everyone completely. These guards weren't very powerful individually. Most were only at the desolate Meridian realm. But what made the crowd wary was that they had trained in a coordinated battle formation. What is a battle formation? It's similar to a normal formation, but fundamentally different. Regular formations rely on spirit force to form array marks. Battle formations treat each person as a node in the array. They are one unified entity. Touch one, move all. At this moment, the guards moved in sync, their steps, posture, and even breathing perfectly aligned. As they combined their auras, a massive phantom of a white tiger appeared in the air above them. The white tiger stretched nearly 100 meters long. It loomed faintly, roaring in midair. Its killing aura was overwhelming and ferocious. Though each of the 100 guards was only at the desolate Meridian realm, together in this formation, they could even challenge someone at the Imperial Meridian realm. That was the fearsome power of a battle formation, combining strength into one. Still, battle formations were rarely used. They were mostly deployed in wars between empires due to their many limitations. Su Zimo glanced around. Most of the ship's passengers were between the desolate Meridian and Paragon Meridian realms. Only a few had reached the Imperial Meridian level. Meanwhile, the Ning clan's second elder was clearly a genuine Empyrean Meridian cultivator. Su Zimo had never heard of the Ning clan before, but he knew there were countless such factions on the eastern continent. They ruled over their own territories, small-time local lords. Their overall power might not be much, but in their region they were still strong. At this point, tensions on deck were high. But the biggest issue was that the passengers weren't united. Some opposed the Ning clan's demand, while others were willing to comply. Seeing the situation, the elder in red looked confident. "So, have you all decided?" he asked. "I agree," someone said. already handing over the treasures they had gathered from the island. Others remained silent. Seeing people start to give in, the elder stayed patient. At that moment, an elderly man with one arm stepped forward from the crowd. He leaned on a cane and walked with a limp. He wasn't just missing an arm, his legs also seemed disabled. More notably, he was blind. "You all go on with your business. This old blind man won't be participating," he said cheerfully, walking out with his cane. As he moved aside, the formation guards were about to act, but the red-robed elder stopped them. "Senior, are you the bloodthirsty Mad Blade?" the elder asked solemnly, with great respect. "Bloodthirsty Mad Blade? I'm just a regular old man," the one-armed elder said with a smile and a shake of his head. "No need to deny it," the red-robed elder replied. "Out here in the endless sky sea, your name is more famous than even grand emperors." Hearing that, the one-armed man paused slightly, then said nothing more, and quietly walked off into the distance. Chapter 384. Some people just don't know their place. Bloodthirsty Mad Blade. That was once a name that shook the endless sky sea. Unfortunately, after leaving behind countless legends, he disappeared. People tend to forget. Over time, talk of him gradually faded away. It's said that during the early days of the Imperial era, the vast and dangerous sky sea was full of threats. A race called the Jade occupied the sea route between the eastern and northern continents. Back then, the era had just begun, and the human race was only starting to rise. Most humans weren't very strong. The Jade race were one of the 3,000 races. Their members were known as Jade Beasts. Large numbers of Jade Beasts settled across the sky sea, acting like pirates and raiding passing ships. At that time, the Jade race was still powerful. After the war between humans and beasts during the Imperial era, both races were weakened. This gave the Jade a perfect opportunity. Those who were robbed didn't dare speak out. That time became known as the Dark Era of the Endless Sky Sea. The Jade Beasts ruled the region. Later, a ship bound for the northern continent was raided by Jade Beasts. Everyone on board was killed. The father of the bloodthirsty Mad Blade was on that ship. At the time, he was just a young man. When he learned of his father's death, the once quiet and reserved youth set out on a path of revenge. No one could have imagined that this ordinary youth would trigger an unprecedented storm in that era. As the one-armed old man walked away, the red-robed elder stayed silent for a moment and didn't stop him. Most who lived near the endless sky sea held gratitude and respect for the bloodthirsty Mad Blade. And after so many years, no one really knew how strong he had become. Despite being one-armed and blind, no one dared to underestimate him. The old man stood by the ship's edge, seemingly admiring the sea view. He showed no intention of getting involved. The red-robed elder finally turned his attention back and smiled. Those who've handed over their items may return to their cabins. As more people gave in and relaxed, the red-robed elder looked confident. They had done this kind of thing many times before. And it wasn't just the Ning clan. Many forces across the endless sky sea did it too. After all, finding a floating island was extremely rare. Now, having others risk their lives while they reaped the rewards, what could be better? As for what people would say after leaving the island, they didn't care. Many factions did the same thing. It had become an unspoken rule in the darker regions. Su Zimo frowned at the situation. He hadn't expected so many issues just on the way to the northern continent. He paused, then walked out from the crowd, heading back to his cabin. But he had only taken 2 steps when a guard blocked him. "Stop," the guard said coldly. "Hand over your stuff before you leave. I'll give it to you if you dare take it," Su Zimo replied calmly. "Why wouldn't I?" the guard sneered. "Kid, know your place. Believe me, I'll throw you in the sea to feed the fish." Su Zimo slightly lifted his head. Then came a sharp clang, the sound of a sword being drawn. Before the guard could react, his legs were severed at the knees. The sword was so fast that his body fell to the ground before he even realized it. Only then did he start screaming in pain. The scene immediately drew everyone's attention. The red-robed elder frowned. The rest of the 100-man battle formation didn't wait for orders. They activated the formation and charged at Suzimo. The massive phantom of the White Tiger roared in the sky. Thunderous explosions shook the entire sea. Winds swirled above, and the White Tiger's power was unstoppable. From the way things looked, they weren't holding back. They intended to kill Suzimo on the spot, to make an example for the others. The red-robed elder watched coldly from the side. Even the one-armed old man in the distance seemed intrigued and turned to watch. "Some people just don't know their place," Suzimo said, shaking his head slightly. He raised his sword, Shadow Tyrant, and casually swung it, seemingly without effort. At his current peak Empyrean Meridian level, he didn't even consider a mere Imperial Meridian battle formation worthy of seriousness. With a boom, a sky-piercing blade light burst from Shadow Tyrant. Dozens of meters long, it was wreathed in fire and lightning. The pressure from the blade cracked the air with loud pops. As it fell at lightning speed, the lightning on it surged. The roaring White Tiger in the sky didn't even have time to resist. It was instantly pierced by the blade. Boom! The battle formation collapsed instantly, shattered into pieces. Over half of the 100 guards in the formation died on the spot. The remaining few lay heavily injured on the deck. Seeing this scene, all the onlookers were stunned. Even the red-robed elder looked horrified, his face twitching slightly. One casual strike, yet it held such terrifying power. And looking at Suzimo, he was just a young man. When had such a prodigy appeared on the eastern continent? The elder gulped. Even as an Empyrean Meridian cultivator, he had no confidence against the young man before him. In fact, he had a strong feeling he wasn't even a match. "May I ask where you're from, young master?" "The guard's offense just now was due to my poor oversight," the red-robed elder quickly said. "You think a simple excuse like that is enough?" Suzimo sneered. "Their lives are yours to decide," the elder said, glancing at the injured guards. He knew most of them wouldn't survive anyway. "I'm not someone who likes to beat dogs," Suzimo said, holding Shadow Tyrant in hand. He stepped toward the red-robed elder. "Dogs are endless, but a dog's master, there's only one. Better to beat him to death now than deal with trouble later." The elder frowned slightly at his words, but in the end, he forced himself to hold back his anger. "You misunderstand, young master. I had no intention of targeting you," he said. Chapter 385, Journey to the Northern Continent. "The things you obtained on the floating island, we won't check them. You can keep them," the red-robed elder said. "I have no intention of becoming your enemy." As he spoke, the powerful aura of the Empyrean Meridian realm erupted around him, sacred pressure flooding the area. Though he was softening towards Suzimo, he also used it as a warning. He wasn't someone to be messed with. "But we're already enemies," Suzimo said calmly. He ignored the elder's pressure, dragging the edge of his saber Shadow Tyrant across the deck. The scraping sound echoed all around, and a glaring white line marked his path on the deck. The ship was deathly silent. People stood by quietly, afraid to speak, watching the confrontation. "Are you declaring war on my Ning clan, young master?" the red-robed elder asked, squinting. His aura spread out like waves, swirling around him. Suzimo didn't reply. Instead, he turned to the crowd and asked, "Can any of you pilot this ship?" After a brief silence, a man in a blue robe stepped forward. "I can," he said weakly. "Good. Then I can kill them all without worry," Suzimo chuckled. Shadow Tyrant trembled in his hand, as if excited. Suzimo held the curved blade, eyes locked on the red-robed elder. His aura grew stronger, his veins unlocking one by one. Springwheel, Deep Bone, Dawn Wind, Vast Sea, Bloodveil, and the 7th Meridian Gate, Void Verge. The moment the 7th gate opened, sacred energy surged like a river. The full power of the peak Empyrean Meridian realm erupted. The elder's expression changed drastically. He himself had only just entered the Empyrean Meridian level. Seeing this scene, the red-robed elder didn't even think about fighting back. He turned and fled into the sky without hesitation. He moved fast, leaving behind afterimages, fleeing like a red streak. You think you can run? Su Zimo smiled. He swung Shadow Tyrant with incredible speed, forming a streak of light. Endless pressure radiated from the saber. The sky was filled with a towering blade light. With a loud boom, the blade light descended slowly. To the crowd, it looked like it fell in slow motion. But space itself seemed to freeze at that moment. No matter how hard the Elder tried, he couldn't escape the strike. A scream echoed in the air. Even though the red-robed Elder kept dodging, his body was still 1/3 sliced away from the left shoulder down. The blade light didn't slow, cutting through the sky, shattering layers of space, and slamming into the sea below. Boom! Water exploded 100 meters high. Waves surged for miles. A vacuum split open across the sea. But the red-robed Elder didn't die. That was the strength of the Empyrean Meridian realm. His body's healing and endurance far exceeded ordinary limits. As long as the soul remained intact, even the most serious injuries could slowly recover. Su Zimo waved his right hand. The immortal suppression chain flew out, wrapped around the red-robed Elder, and dragged him back to the deck. Bang! His body slammed onto the deck, eyes half closed, disheveled. "Spare me! I surrender!" he shouted. "Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." To most cultivators, the longer they lived, the more they feared death. They had worked so hard to reach their current level, fought for their future, and enjoyed luxury and power. All of that was reason enough not to want to die. In truth, those who truly pursued the martial path without fear of death were rare. "You don't seem to have anything worth your life," Su Zimo said coldly. "I'm the second Elder of the Ning clan. If you let me go, I still have influence," the Elder pleaded. "Does the Ning clan have any immortal path cultivators?" Su Zimo asked. The Elder fell silent. Immortal path cultivators weren't common vegetables. How could the Ning clan have one? In reality, on the primordial heartlands, most immortals came from major powers like the imperial lineages. Among rogue cultivators or small factions, becoming immortal was nearly impossible. Just like the saying, "It's hard for the poor to produce champions. How about we play a game? Leave it to fate." Su Zimo suddenly smiled. "What game?" the Elder asked warily. Su Zimo chuckled, then waved his hand. The immortal suppression chain started to move, dragging the red-robed Elder into the ocean behind the ship. One end of the chain was tied to the Elder, the other to the back of the ship. As the ship moved forward, the Elder was dragged through the sea like bait. "There are a lot of terrifying creatures in the endless sky sea," Su Zimo said. "I'll drag you behind the ship. If you're still alive when we reach the northern continent, I'll let it go. And if something eats you, oh well, blame your bad luck." Salt water poured into the Elder's nose and mouth as he screamed, "You're vicious!" "Good luck," Su Zimo said with a laugh, turning away. As Su Zimo stepped back onto the deck, the remaining passengers rushed to thank him, all trying to get on his good side. Su Zimo glanced at them coldly. "I just killed him," he said. "You think that means you're safe? Hand over whatever you got from the floating island. Anyone who stalls, don't expect mercy." The crowd's cheerful faces immediately froze. Everyone suddenly remembered a saying, "Escaped the wolf's den, ran into the tiger's jaws." They had just witnessed how ruthless Su Zimo could be. No one dared delay. One by one, they handed over what they had taken from the island. Su Zimo looked through it. Most of the items were unimpressive, just weapons or odd remnants. But they contained demonic energy he could absorb, helping him further understand his connection with the hell-suppressing demon body. After collecting everything, Su Zimo's expression grew calm. He walked toward the one-armed old man. The old man was quietly watching the sea. When he saw Su Zimo approaching, he smiled faintly. "Every generation brings forth new talent," he said with a slight sigh. Chapter 386, Arrival at the Northern Continent. Hearing the one-armed old man's words, Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. Each era has its own heroes. Are you talking about yourself, senior? The old man paused briefly, then laughed. My time has long passed. Now the world belongs to young people like you. Have you truly let go of it all? Su Zimo asked. I let it go long ago. People often say I changed the power balance of the endless sky sea. But in truth, the old darkness fades, and new darkness always comes. This sea will always drift between its beautiful blue surface and filthy foam. After speaking, the old man returned to his cabin. Su Zimo watched him go without stopping him. Bloodthirsty Madblade, he had indeed once been a famous name across the eastern continent. But every hero faces the day when they grow old. The wheels of history never stop for anyone. The ship encountered no further danger on its journey. There were a few sea creatures that attacked along the way, but they weren't very powerful. In the end, the voyage reached the northern continent safely. When Su Zimo went to the stern, he noticed that the other end of the immortal suppression chain was now empty. The red-robed elder had long vanished, perhaps swallowed by a sea creature. Su Zimo retrieved the chain, and the ship slowly docked at the harbor. As the one-armed old man was leaving, he glanced at Su Zimo. With meaning in his words, he said, Young man, we might meet again someday. Let's hope so, Su Zimo replied calmly. Watching the old man leave, the other passengers also began to disembark. Standing at the bow, Su Zimo gazed deeply at the vast land before him. The northern continent. A new and even more exciting journey awaited. This was the largest harbor on the edge of the northern continent. Nearly all ships traveling between the eastern and northern continents would stop or depart from here. Su Zimo followed the others along the dock and stepped into the northern continent. This harbor was controlled by a powerful local force. When talking about the powers of the northern continent, you had to mention the many races that lived here. It was even more complex than the eastern continent. On the surface, the strongest powers here were the 36 races. Humans were just one of those 36. That alone hinted at how complicated things were. Of course, the most densely packed and expansive power still belonged to the middle continent. Its 4 great regions were vast. Just the Holy Flower region alone rivaled entire continents. Though the 36 races were the dominant force of the northern continent, that was only what was known publicly. In secret, many hidden races and factions were just as powerful. Over countless eras, each of the 36 races had formed its own city-states and territories. Through numerous wars and conflicts, kingdoms of various strength emerged. Because of this, the 36 races were also known as the 36 Empires. The faction that controlled this harbor was one of those empires, the Slaughter Empire, located on the far eastern edge of the northern continent. Slaughter Empire was founded by the Slaughter race. They looked very similar to humans in appearance, but deep in their bones, they were warriors full of bloodlust. They admired strength and believed in solving everything through combat. Not far from the harbor was a city. Su Zimo didn't know every detail about the northern continent, but he had a general idea. Among the 36 empires, Slaughter Empire's territory was one of the largest. After a month at sea, everyone was physically and mentally exhausted. He followed the crowd into the nearby city. Towering city walls stood in the wind and snow. The walls weren't very old. Above the gate were 2 bold characters, Fearless City. It was said the city was once destroyed in a great war, but later rebuilt by the Slaughter Empire. Su Zimo found an inn and planned to rest for the day before visiting his grandfather's family. His maternal grandfather's Wunrin clan was located in the Phoenix Perch Empire of the northern continent. It was a human-led nation, and the Wunrin clan was one of the top forces there. After entering Fearless City, Su Zimo noticed something interesting. Notices were posted everywhere. They stated that the city lord had recently discovered the inheritance of a powerful cultivator. But the conditions to claim this inheritance were highly unusual. Only a child born on the 7th day of the 7th month could accept it. Anyone else would be rejected, and if someone tried to forcefully take it, the inheritance would destroy itself. Unwilling to let such a treasure go to waste, The city lord began searching for the right heir within the city, planning to adopt them as a foster child and train them. It was a one-step-to-glory opportunity. Many were envious, but the strict birthday requirement eliminated most. To this day, the right heir still hadn't been found. While eating at the inn, Su Zimo glanced at a notice even posted inside and smiled. Just then, a timid little girl walked in from outside, carrying a small flower basket. She had 2 little braids, smooth black hair, and wore a big coat covered in pudding prints, which nearly covered her whole body. She nervously approached Su Zimo. With her big black eyes wide open, she asked softly, "Big brother, do you want to buy a flower?" Su Zimo looked at the flowers in her basket. They were all common wildflowers, but carefully selected and arranged. They looked quite nice. "How much?" Su Zimo asked with interest. "1 copper coin per flower," the girl replied hopefully. "Sure. I'll take the whole basket." Su Zimo smiled, pulling out a spirit stone from his storage ring and handing it to her. Seeing the spirit stone, the little girl froze, unsure what to do. "What's wrong?" Su Zimo asked. I don't have change," she said nervously, fidgeting with her sleeves. "It's fine. Just keep it." Su Zimo waved it off. "No, I can't." The girl shook her head firmly. "Grandpa always told me, you shouldn't accept kindness for free." She took the spirit stone and added, "Wait here. I'll go get medicine for Grandpa. I'll pay you back the extra money later." Chapter 387, The Little Girl Who Sold Flowers. Watching the little girl run off, Su Zimo shook his head and smiled. In this world of deception and the rule of the strong, there are still some people or things that make you feel it's all meaningful. Su Zimo finished dinner, but the little girl never returned. He set the flower basket aside. It was still afternoon, sometime before dusk. Su Zimo decided to go for a walk. Fearless City was a large city, connecting the coasts of the northern and eastern continents. As a result, both eastern and northern continent residents coexisted here in balance. Walking along the city's bustling streets, Su Zimo saw many other races. In this land, many races even lived peacefully side by side. There were multi-horned races with 3 horns on their heads, winged races with 2 wings, and ox-headed humanoid beings, the bull demon race. Of course, the most numerous in this city were members of the slaughter race. They looked quite similar to humans but had bronze skin. Their teeth were much sharper, with only 4 fingers on each hand. Their jawbones were more pronounced, and their noses were almost flat against their faces. It was easy to tell their race at a glance. As Su Zimo walked down the busy streets, the winter weather was starting to warm. After walking for a while, he noticed a crowd gathered to one side of the road, watching something unfold. People were whispering among themselves. Su Zimo walked over, curious. This girl's already stealing at such a young age. What kind of person will she grow into? She needs to be taught a lesson. I know that little girl. She often sells flowers in Fearless City. Lives with her grandfather. Doesn't look like the type to steal. Who knows? I heard her grandfather is sick. Maybe she's desperate. Hearing the crowd's talk, Su Zimo immediately thought of the little girl who had sold him flowers at the inn earlier. He squeezed through the crowd to see what was going on. In front of him was a pharmacy, its dark signboard reading Hall of Mercy. At the center of the scene, a little girl was on the ground, and beside her stood the shopkeeper and 2 assistants. "You're just a kid. I don't want to be too harsh," the shopkeeper snorted coldly. "Hand over the spirit stone and I'll let you go." "You're lying. That spirit stone is mine." The little girl clutched it tightly, her voice full of grievance. "Lying? Then tell me, where did you get that spirit stone?" One of the assistants pointed to the crowd and shouted, "Everyone, judge for yourselves. My spirit stone went missing earlier. Before giving her the medicine, it was still in my pouch. Then she came in and bumped into me. Right after, my spirit stone vanished. If she didn't steal it, where did it go? That spirit stone was given to me by a big brother who bought my flowers," the little girl insisted. A bystander shook his head. Little girl, you don't even know how to lie properly. Who'd use a spirit stone to buy those pitiful flowers? Give it back already. Hearing that, Suzimo shook his head and stepped out of the crowd. He walked over to the little girl and helped her up. Big brother! The girl's eyes lit up when she saw him. She was about to explain, but Suzimo stopped her with a shake of his head. Is there something you want? The shopkeeper asked, eyeing Suzimo cautiously. I gave her that spirit stone, Suzimo replied calmly. So what? You have a problem? The shopkeeper was stunned, clearly not expecting that. He chuckled and said, Sir, please don't joke. No need to cover for her like that. Suzimo ignored him and turned to the little girl. Go on, head back. I'd like to see who dares stop you. The girl hesitated, then began walking away. One of the assistants quickly stepped forward to grab her, but a dazzling blade of light slashed out from space. His arms were cut clean off. You think you can extort my spirit stone and I won't react? Suzimo said coldly. The assistant fell to the ground, screaming in pain. The shopkeeper broke into a cold sweat. The surrounding onlookers all took a few steps back. At that moment, a group of men in black uniforms came running over. What's going on here? Their leader asked. He was from the slaughter race, his eyes sharp like a hawk's, nose hooked. Seeing him arrive, the shopkeeper lit up with hope and quickly spoke. Lord Zesong, someone is causing trouble in our Hall of Mercy. He stole from us and cut off my assistant's arms. Lu Zesong frowned and looked at the situation before turning his gaze to Suzimo. Is that true? He asked. Before Suzimo could respond, the little girl hurriedly explained, They're lying. They tried to frame me and steal my spirit stone. This big brother was helping me. Lu Zesong turned to look at her, stunned for a moment. So it's you, he said. You still remember me, sir? The little girl asked, nodding quickly. All right, let's end this here. Lu Zesong waved his hand. The shopkeeper looked like he wanted to speak, but Lu Zesong's sharp gaze instantly silenced him. Be sure to come to the city lord's manor when the time comes, Lu Zesong said to the girl, then led his men away. Thank you, big brother, the girl quickly said to Suzimo once the crowd dispersed. What's your relationship with that guy? Suzimo asked curiously. Given she knew Lu Zesong, it didn't make sense for her to be living so poorly in Fearless City. The little girl hesitated, then said softly, I was supposed to keep it a secret, but I know you're a good person, big brother. If you really want to know, come to my house and I'll tell you quietly. Seeing her nervous expression, Suzimo couldn't help but laugh. Since he had nothing else to do in Fearless City, he agreed. The girl lived in an old, run-down house in the southern part of the city. All the houses there were shabby, clearly a slum. When Suzimo entered, he saw a frail old man lying on the bed. He was extremely thin, clearly very ill. His skin was waxy yellow and he looked terribly weak. Chapter 388 Corpse Attack. Suzimo glanced at the old man and saw that his whole body was stiff. His skin and flesh tense and cold to the touch. He clearly looked like a dead man. Yet faint breathing still came from his mouth. Suzimo frowned slightly. This condition reminded him of certain situations. Big brother, have a seat. I'll go boil medicine for Grandpa, the little girl said with a smile. Watching her leave, Suzimo looked around the room. He didn't see anything out of the ordinary, so he decided to check out the surroundings. Walking out the door, the area looked more like a slum. The buildings were all dilapidated from years of neglect. They looked like they could collapse at any time. After walking a few steps, he heard crying from the neighboring courtyard. A crowd had gathered inside, discussing something. Suzimo followed and squeezed into the crowd. In the center was a woman holding a child, crying bitterly. The child's body was pale, without any sign of blood. Clearly, he was long dead. Suzimo frowned again. Something was definitely off about this slum. He crouched down and said to the woman, May I take a look at the child? The woman looked at him warily. After a brief pause, she placed the child on the ground. Suzimo examined the body, lifting the clothes on the child's back. There were 5 small holes in the back, as if someone had driven 5 fingers straight into the body. The inside was completely drained of blood. Did they catch the killer? Suzimo asked the woman. No. She quickly shook her head. I had the doctor check. He said all the blood was drained from the child. There's no way to save him. Suzimo stayed silent for a moment. Someone nearby spoke. Looks like it's the work of demons. If this continues, we'll all have to move. Does this happen often here? Suzimo asked. Not really. It used to be peaceful. Another person explained. It's only been happening recently. People getting killed, all in horrifying ways. And every time the blood is drained. The city lord's estate doesn't do anything? Suzimo asked curiously. They did at first. Sent a lot of guards. The man sighed and shook his head. But it didn't help. People kept dying. Eventually, they just gave up. Well, this is getting interesting, Suzimo said with amusement. Leaving the courtyard, Suzimo returned to the little girl's home. She had already finished brewing the medicine and was feeding it to her grandfather. He also now knew her name, Guo Xiaoyun. So how do you know that guy? Lu Zesong? Suzimo asked as he pulled up a chair and sat. I was born on the 7th day of the 7th month, Guo Xiaoyun said after a short pause. Suzimo instantly understood. Lately, the city had been abuzz about the city lord searching for a successor, an adopted child to receive a powerful inheritance. It was all anyone talked about. When my grandpa got sick, I thought if I was chosen, I could afford to buy medicine, Guo Xiaoyun continued. But the city lord's men said they'd gather all the candidates 1 month later and choose only one of us. You met Lu Zesong during that time, right? Suzimo nodded slightly. I only met him once. I didn't expect him to remember me, Guo Xiaoyun said, sounding surprised. All right, this area isn't safe lately. Be careful, Suzimo said with a wave of his hand. Big brother, why don't you stay at my house tonight? Guo Xiaoyun asked, eyes full of hope. Suzimo originally intended to decline, but after glancing at the old man in bed, he nodded in agreement. Guo Xiaoyun beamed with joy and hurried off to tidy up a room for him. The night was calm. The warm winter wind was making its last stand. Spring was just beginning to show signs of arrival. As darkness fell, strange events of late had made people cautious. As soon as the sky dimmed, most returned home and didn't go out. Suzimo lay alone on the bed. The quiet of night wrapped the room in silence and darkness. Late at night he heard footsteps, heavy steps, slowly approaching his room. Someone's up to something, Suzimo muttered coldly. Creak. The door opened gently. Suzimo, lying on the bed, could feel someone slowly approaching. The moonlight cast the figure's shadow on the wall. Suddenly, with a whoosh, a blast of force flew toward his head. Bang bang. The shadow struck Suzimo, but was blocked by his weapon, the Shadow Tyrant. Suzimo leapt up and turned to face the figure. Bathed in moonlight, the figure stared at him blankly, without any emotion in its eyes. I should have figured it out sooner, Suzimo murmured. The figure was Guo Xiaoyun's grandfather, the supposedly gravely ill old man. But now he looked nothing like a person. Black lines covered his skin. His veins bulged, and his mouth growled lowly. He looked ferocious, terrifying. I knew something was wrong. A man who should have been dead still breathing, Suzimo said. Turns out you're already a walking corpse. The old man roared, thick saliva drooling from his mouth as he attacked Suzimo. Suzimo didn't bother holding back. Shadow Tyrant slashed down from above. Its massive pressure crushed the old man beneath it. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't break free. At that moment, Guo Xiaoyun rushed over from the next room after hearing the commotion. Grandpa! She screamed, unable to believe what she was seeing. Big brother, my grandpa woke up, she cried to Suzimo. Sorry, but your grandpa has been dead for a long time, Suzimo said after a pause. He was turned into a corpse puppet. The recent deaths here, he drained their blood. Guo Xiaoyun collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed. staring at the familiar yet unrecognizable old man. The old man, after struggling for a moment, suddenly started to swell without warning. Then his back split open. A large, bloated worm crawled out of his body. Chapter 389, Wind-Destroying Pearl. When the worm appeared, the old man's body began to change at a speed visible to the naked eye. It started rotting, giving off a stench, and eventually turned into a puddle of pus. The fat worm beside it licked the pus enthusiastically. A corpse worm from the southern continent. Showing up here? Su Zimo frowned slightly. Then, the fat worm lifted its head, its tiny black eyes fixed on Guoxiaoyun. Its body shot through the air toward her. Su Zimo snorted coldly and slashed with his sword. The worm's outer shell was extremely tough. With a loud clang, it was knocked to the ground but barely injured. The worm continued struggling on the ground. At that moment, a cloud of black mist enveloped the courtyard. A burst of laughter echoed from the mist. Before Su Zimo could react, a figure slowly emerged from the swirling darkness. He wore a black robe, with bat-like wings hanging down from his back. His face was hidden behind a mask, and his entire body was shrouded in the robe. Looks like someone got impatient, Su Zimo chuckled. Trash? The black-robed man sneered at the puddle of pus on the ground. Then he laughed coldly and said, Kid, how do you want to die? What's your relationship with Void Valley? Su Zimo asked with a slight frown. Oh, seems you know quite a bit, the black-robed man said, a little surprised. But knowing too much never ends well. Doesn't matter if you talk or not. I'll go visit Void Valley eventually, Su Zimo replied calmly. Too bad you won't get the chance. As the man spoke, he extended his right hand. The black mist gathered in his palm, with endless spirit force swirling around. The sky above turned dark as clouds twisted. With a loud boom, a black sphere condensed from mist surged towards Su Zimo with destructive force. Su Zimo drew his curved blade, Shadow Tyrant, from his back, charging it with spirit force. He unleashed one of the 19 forms of Dao-seeking Void Oblivion. The blade aura tore through the sky, laced with thunder and fire. A torrent of destruction exploded outward. The surrounding space shattered layer by layer, and with a deafening crack, the black sphere was completely obliterated. The blade aura didn't stop and kept surging toward the black-robed man. So strong. The black-robed man frowned, clearly not expecting Su Zimo's power. He summoned more black mist, which descended like a dark light, enveloping the blade aura and devouring it. Is that all you've got? Su Zimo sneered. His figure surged forward, charging straight at the black-robed man. Creation energy surged around him, merging with spirit force along his blade. He activated the 7th transformation of the Azure Dragon. Behind him, the image of an ancient dragon roared, and his slash descended with overwhelming power. Everything around was annihilated. The black-robed man's expression finally changed. He shifted his body and vanished into the surrounding mist. You think you can escape? Su Zimo snorted. He released the immortal suppression chain, which tracked the man's presence and flew toward him. Su Zimo slashed in the same direction. With a deafening boom, the sky above exploded like a mushroom cloud. Endless shockwaves rippled out in all directions. The black-robed man, now bloodied and torn, fell from the sky. Su Zimo walked toward him, holding Shadow Tyrant. The immortal suppression chain had completely wrapped around the man, making him unable to move. I want to see who you really are, Su Zimo said as he walked up. He pulled off the man's mask. Beneath it was a young, sickly pale face. He didn't look very old. You can't kill me? The youth coughed, spitting out several mouthfuls of blood, clearly weakened. I'm from Void Valley. And? Su Zimo asked with interest. If I die, Void Valley won't let you go, the youth said between coughs. I'm not afraid of even the 10 forbidden grounds, Su Zimo replied calmly. Let me go, and I'll tell you a secret. The youth quickly changed tactics when threats failed. What secret? Su Zimo asked. You have to release me first, the youth said again. How do I know the secret is worth your life? Su Zimo asked. It's about the 5 spirit orbs. Worth it or not? The youth shot back. The 5 spirit orbs? Su Zimo frowned slightly. It was an ancient legend. The story was vague, even hard to verify as true or false. The legend dated back to the time when the primordial heartlands were divided into 5 parts. Most people treated it as a myth. Few believed it was real. Tempting. Su Zimo smiled faintly. The youth didn't respond. He waited for Su Zimo's decision. He believed no one could resist the lure of the 5 spirit orbs. Letting you go is out of the question. I don't trust anyone, Su Zimo said with a smile. But don't worry, I won't let you die too soon. We have plenty of time. Wait, the youth quickly said, panicked by Su Zimo's attitude. I can tell you something about the 5 spirit orbs. Don't force yourself, Su Zimo said with a smile. If I tell you, you'll let me go, the youth confirmed again. Speak, Su Zimo nodded. What I know is about one of the 5 spirit orbs, the wind-destroying pearl. The youth paused, then continued. In the Celestial Tiger Empire of the Northern Continent, a legacy site was discovered today. Based on what I know, it's likely connected to the wind-destroying pearl. That's it? Su Zimo asked flatly. No, from what I know, the wind-destroying pearl isn't easy to obtain. Each of the 5 spirit orbs has a companion creature, the youth said. Only by finding the companion can you obtain the corresponding orb. Where is the companion for the wind-destroying pearl? Su Zimo asked. In the hands of the city lord of Fearless City, the youth answered. But I'm no match for him. I could only stir up some chaos in the city, hoping to find a chance to snatch the companion. You mean the legacy in the city lord's possession?
Su Zimo frowned.
I think it's very likely. The city lord may have accidentally gotten the companion, but he probably doesn't know it's linked to the wind-destroying pearl. He just treats it as some kind of legacy. The youth nodded. Chapter 390 Situ Yunfei. After hearing the young man's words, Su Zimo fell into thought. Directly storming the city lord's mansion to seize the inheritance would draw too much attention. He had just arrived in the northern continent and didn't need to create conflict with the Slaughter Empire so soon. Plus, very few people knew about the wind-destroying pearl's inheritance, so there was no need to stir things up. Now can you let me go? The young man asked cautiously. I suddenly changed my mind, what now? Su Zimo asked with a faint smile. You? The young man's expression changed, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. He finally said, Are you really going to make an enemy of Void Valley? Not necessarily. Su Zimo shook his head. It's just that very few people know about the companion creature right now. If I let you go and you spread the word, what then? The young man fell silent. Because that had indeed been his plan, to muddy the waters since he couldn't get it himself. What would it take for you to trust me? He asked. I'll plant a demon seal in your body. You'll follow me for now. Once I finish what I need to do at the city lord's mansion, you can leave.
Su Zimo replied.
The young man struggled with the idea and hesitated for a long time. In the end, he looked at Su Zimo and said, What if you go back on your word again? You have no choice but to believe me. Otherwise, I'll just kill you, Su Zimo replied. Besides, I don't want to make enemies with Void Valley for no reason. I just want to reach my goal. Fine. The young man finally agreed with a helpless nod. My name is Situ Yunfei. A compound surname, huh? Sounds like you have a pretty high status in Void Valley. Su Zimo smiled. As one of the 10 forbidden grounds, Su Zimo had researched Void Valley before. Those with compound surnames were the true core members of the faction. Situ Yunfei nodded slightly and said nothing more. Su Zimo turned around. Nearby, Guo Xiaoyun had already fainted from fear. The sky began to brighten slightly in the east. When she awoke and saw Su Zimo beside her, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Big brother, where's my grandpa? She asked. Your grandfather has been dead for a while, Su Zimo replied. Was he killed by that man in black? She asked sadly. No, your grandfather died from his illness. That man in black just used his corpse. Su Zimo shook his head. Dead? Guo Xiaoyun lay back on the bed, eyes blank, lost in thought. Take a few days to calm down. You'll have to start a new life eventually, Su Zimo said. Now that Grandpa is gone, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, she replied helplessly. Do you want to cultivate? Su Zimo asked. Cultivate. Guo Xiaoyun froze in place upon hearing the word. To most ordinary people on the primordial heartlands, cultivation felt both close and out of reach. The path of cultivation required resources, companions, techniques, and land, none of which could be missing. Many never stepped onto the path their whole lives. You don't need to answer now. Think about it, Su Zimo said. In the following days, Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei stayed in Fearless City. They planned to accompany Guo Xiaoyun to the city lord's mansion, since she had a chance to receive the inheritance. But over those few days, Su Zimo noticed many unfamiliar faces in the city. Several factions seemed to have purposely gathered here. That made him suspect that news of the inheritance might have leaked. How did you know about the wind-destroying Pearl's companion? Su Zimo asked Situ Yunfei. When the companion inheritance first appeared, I also tried to fight for it, Situ Yunfei replied. But it ended up being taken by the city lord of Fearless City. I did, however, get a notebook from the inheritance site. It contained information about the wind-destroying Pearl's companion. Where's the notebook? Su Zimo asked. I destroyed it after reading it to avoid being discovered, Situ Yunfei replied. Did the book say anything else besides the companion? Su Zimo continued asking. Anything about the other 4 spirit pearls? No. Situ Yunfei shook his head. That inheritance was left behind by an ancient cultivator. After obtaining the wind-destroying Pearl's companion, he was ambushed by powerful enemies. He died before he could even search for the wind-destroying Pearl, in his own cave. Later, the cave was opened, and the companion ended up with the city lord. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Over the past few days, Guo Xiaoyun came to him and confirmed she wanted to cultivate. He casually gave her a decent cultivation technique. After about a week, the day to select the inheritor finally arrived. Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei disguised themselves as Guo Xiaoyun's older brothers to accompany her to the city lord's mansion. The city lord of Fearless City was named Lu Yengui, said to be a peak Imperial Meridian-level expert. The city lord's mansion was in a remote location. It wasn't in the most prosperous part of the city, but rather in a northern corner. When Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei arrived with Guo Xiaoyun, they found that the mansion wasn't particularly grand. The walls outside were red brick with green tiles, and many trees were planted around. Dozens of people were already gathered at the gate. There were both boys and girls, all likely candidates for the inheritance. Although being born on the 7th day of the 7th month was rare, once the search range was widened, there were still some people who qualified. All the young participants looked excited. After all, this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to change their fate. After a while, an old man in a green robe walked out from the mansion. Everyone, let me briefly introduce myself. I'm the steward of the city lord's inner court. You can call me Steward Mo. The old man had graying temples and spoke with a smile. Greetings, Steward Mo. The crowd responded quickly. All right, I'm here on the city lord's orders to explain the rules, he said. The 7th day of the 7th month is just a hard requirement. It doesn't mean you'll definitely receive the inheritance if you meet it. Only one of you will be chosen. We understand. Please explain in more detail, one of the guardians replied. There are no real rules. Each of you will be tested one by one. Whoever is recognized by the inheritance will become the city lord's adopted son or daughter. Steward Mo paused, then added, but I must make something clear. The inheritance carries risk. Only the one acknowledged by it will survive. The rest will die. There is basically no chance of survival. Chapter 391, The Eerie City Lord's Mansion. When Steward Mo spoke, the scene immediately turned chaotic. The crowd started buzzing, especially the families of the candidates. They questioned one after another. Why didn't you tell us beforehand? There's still time now. Steward Mo glanced at everyone. He said calmly, since the inheritance hasn't started yet, anyone who wants to quit can still leave. Did you really think things like free gifts fall from the sky? Never considered there might be risks. Hearing this, the crowd fell silent. After all, having come this far, most people were unwilling to just walk away. But if they failed, the cost could be devastating. Su Zimo turned his head and asked Guo Xiaoyun. You heard him. If you want to back out, now's your chance. I want to give it a try. Guo Xiaoyun hesitated for a moment, then nodded. After all, her grandfather was no longer in this world, and the things she was attached to were becoming fewer.
Su Yimo nốt đét.
Life and death are fate. Choices come with both honor and consequences. Of the dozens of people at the gate, only a few backed out. Most still chose to try. All right, follow me into the city lord's mansion, Steward Mo said with satisfaction. He added, there are many restricted areas inside the mansion. Stick close to me and don't wander. If anything happens, don't say I didn't warn you. Everyone nodded and followed Steward Mo into the city lord's mansion. Although the mansion was located in a relatively remote area of Fearless City, its interior was quite grand. Rock gardens and pavilions, towers and palaces, colorful bricks and green tiles, white stone paths crisscrossing the estate. Even though it was only early spring, the trees had grown lush like a forest. Ivy covered entire walls, creating a sea of green at a glance. The inheritance ceremony will be held tomorrow. For safety, no family members will be allowed to attend, Steward Mo said to the crowd. We'll tell you the results after the ceremony. That's not right. I want to see my son receive the inheritance, someone said. Please be understanding. It's for the safety of the inheritance. Steward Mo replied flatly. Someone might try to steal the inheritance. Not just you. Aside from the city lord, no one is allowed near the inheritance site. The people looked at each other, then helplessly nodded. They all understood that from the moment they entered the mansion, they no longer had any choice. Don't you think it's strange? Su Zimo asked Situ Yunfei. I can understand needing people born on the 7th day of the 7th month for the inheritance. But not letting us watch? That doesn't quite add up. Who knows? We're here to steal the inheritance anyway. Why care about that? Situ Yunfei replied. Steward Mo led the group through several corridors. Eventually, they stopped in a grand hall. The hall was dazzlingly ornate, with rows of green tables on both sides. These tables were filled with fruit and food. The aroma of food filled the entire hall. This is where you'll eat. The city lord is busy preparing for the inheritance, so he won't greet you. If you need anything, just have a servant find me, Steward Mo said. As for your lodging, the guest rooms are nearby. A servant will take you there. After giving his instructions, Steward Mo quickly left. No one stood on ceremony. They sat down at the tables and began eating heartily. I'm telling you, the food here at the city lord's mansion is on another level. I wouldn't mind working here as a servant, a middle-aged man in white robes joked. You still have the appetite to eat? Someone nearby snorted. No one knows if the kids will pass the inheritance. I'm already regretting this. What's there to fear? If you die, that's it. If not, you live forever. The white-robed man chuckled. He turned to his chubby son and said, Son, eat up. Even if you die, die with a full belly. The chubby kid held a chicken leg and nodded hard. What a pair of clowns. Others nearby chuckled at the scene. After eating, the families were led by servants to the guest rooms. That night, the moonlight was bright and beautiful. The families spent their last evening with their children, saying final goodbyes. After tomorrow, no one knew if they'd ever meet again. Lying in bed, Su Zimo felt something was off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He could only stay alert and respond as things happened. Meanwhile, in a brightly lit courtyard within the city lord's mansion, Steward Mo stood in a room, seemingly reporting something. In front of him stood a young man in a purple robe. The young man looked only in his 20s, his face pale, eyes sunken, and he walked with a faint stagger. "Young master, everything is ready," Steward Mo said respectfully. "My father has no objections?" The purple-robed youth asked without turning around. The city lord agreed, "But he told you to be careful and not go too far." Steward Mo nodded and replied, "He's still trying to figure out this inheritance. The city lord believes this inheritance is not simple. Greedy fools. They actually believed my father wanted to adopt a foster son." The purple-robed youth sneered. "After tomorrow, they'll all become nourishment for my martial path." After speaking, he told the old man, "Keep an eye on them. When the time comes, no mistakes. Also, those few who backed out at the gate this morning, have them all secretly captured. Don't let a single one go." Steward Mo nodded slightly and said, "Young master, recently the city lord obtained an inheritance from that place. This city may not stay peaceful for long. At a time like this, we should keep things low-key." The night passed quietly, and dawn began to break. Early the next morning, Steward Mo led dozens of guards to escort the children born on the 7th day of the 7th month away. Since families weren't allowed to follow, Su Zimo and the others had to wait in the main hall. The hall was tightly guarded. No one was allowed to leave. They waited the entire day, and by afternoon, Steward Mo returned with a gloomy expression. "Who got the inheritance?" The families immediately crowded around him, anxiously asking. "Sorry, we didn't expect this to happen." Steward Mo shook his head and sighed. "None of them were accepted by the inheritance." "What do you mean?" A family member collapsed to the floor, in disbelief. "They all died." Steward Mo paused for a moment, then finally answered. Chapter 392 Secret of the City Lord's Mansion. Hearing Steward Mo's words, nearly everyone at the scene collapsed to the ground. Some couldn't believe it. "They're dead. All of them." People stared blankly, shaking their heads. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Things had truly gone beyond his expectations. "My condolences. I told you beforehand," Steward Mo said calmly, shaking his head. He added, "The inheritance isn't easy to obtain. The city lord is also planning to seal it away." At this moment, the hall was extremely quiet. No one spoke. Even though they had mentally prepared themselves earlier, they still couldn't accept this outcome. "Rest for a while. I'll have the servants send you out of the mansion later," Steward Mo said flatly. "You'll each receive 10 spirit stones as a form of consolation." Watching Steward Mo leave, Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei exchanged a look and then disappeared into the crowd. After leaving the hall, Steward Mo sneered and walked toward his room in the inner courtyard. The spring breeze was gentle, and the willow trees on both sides swayed enchantingly. He had gained countless benefits from this incident. This had been a well-planned trap from the start. If not for concerns about public impact, they wouldn't have gone to such trouble using the inheritance as bait. When he returned to his small courtyard, just as he opened the door, he saw someone standing by the window inside the room. "Who are you?" Steward Mo frowned and asked. As he spoke, he began slowly backing out of the courtyard. "Someone here to take your life?" Situ Yunfei snorted coldly and waved his hand. A vast amount of spirit force surged forward. Feeling the pressure of an Imperial Meridian Realm cultivator, Steward Mo's expression changed drastically. In Fearless City, even the City Lord was only at the peak of the Imperial Meridian Realm. He didn't dare to fight and immediately turned to flee as fast as he could. "You're not going anywhere," came Su Zimo's voice from the doorway. A wave of blade energy struck Steward Mo's waist and sent him flying back into the room. The door slowly closed. Steward Mo looked at the two in front of him and swallowed hard. Su Zimo sat on a chair by the table and casually poured himself a cup of tea. He sipped slowly and said, "Talk." "Talk about what?" Steward Mo asked in confusion. Before he could react, another blade flash came, cutting off a finger. "From now on, every time your answer doesn't satisfy me, I'll cut off one of your fingers," Su Zimo said calmly. "You've got 20 fingers and toes in total. No rush, we'll take our time. You're the ones who came with those girls today? Steward Mo suddenly realized. He thought Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei looked familiar and figured it out. He sighed and said, "Why bother? They volunteered for the inheritance. I explained everything beforehand. How is that my fault?" As soon as he finished speaking, another flash of blade energy came. Steward Mo clutched his second severed finger, screaming in pain. "Say something I care about," Su Zimo said while sipping his tea. "I really don't know." Steward Mo shook his head in pain. Clang! A third finger was cut off. "I'll warn you, after all 20 fingers and toes are gone, your head's next," Su Zimo said flatly. As he spoke, he slowly drew his blade, Shadow Tyrant, and gently wiped its sharp edge. "Wait!" Steward Mo quickly stepped back and looked at Su Zimo. "Do you already know something?" "I only know that if I'm not satisfied with the truth, I'll destroy Fearless City," Su Zimo said calmly. "I don't know what role you played in this or how much you profited, but if you're dead, what good are those benefits? Or do you really think your city lord can save you? You're declaring war on the Slaughter Empire," Steward Mo said, his voice trembling. "I'm a fair person. I don't start wars for no reason," Su Zimo said flatly. "But if someone crosses me, so what if I wipe out the entire Slaughter race?" "Madman, you're all madmen," Steward Mo gasped in fear. To wipe out the Slaughter race, he never thought Su Zimo would say such a thing. Everyone knew what the 36 empires represented in the northern continent. The destruction of a race that had developed for millions of years. How difficult was that? But Su Zimo's insane words scared him, because such people feared nothing. "You have to promise me something. If I tell you, you'll let me go," Steward Mo said. "Fine. I just want to know where the children were taken." Su Zimo nodded. "They were taken for alchemy." Steward Mo paused and replied. "Alchemy?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. "Because the son of our city lord of Fearless City, our young master Lu Feiyang, is practicing a demonic cultivation technique. Right now, he's at a critical breakthrough stage and needs the blood of 50 children born on the 7th day of the 7th month as a primer to break through further," Steward Mo explained. "We used the inheritance as a cover to lure in those who met the criteria." "Are they already dead?" Su Zimo asked. "No, they're in the basement. You might still make it if you go now," Steward Mo replied quickly. "Lead the way," Su Zimo said calmly, exchanging a glance with Situ Yunfei. Leaving Steward Mo's courtyard, Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei followed closely behind him. Su Zimo also warned Steward Mo not to play any tricks. His blade doesn't miss. According to what Steward Mo said, the children were being held in the courtyard where Lu Feiyang lived. Beneath it was a secret chamber used by Lu Feiyang for cultivation. Because his technique was entirely evil, he had always been very cautious, never revealing it. When Steward Mo led them to Lu Feiyang's courtyard, they found the area tightly guarded by soldiers. "Steward Mo, what's the matter?" A man in black armor at the entrance stopped them coldly and asked. "General Hung, the young master summoned me." Steward Mo quickly bowed with a smile. "The young master summoned you?" The man named Lu Hung snorted coldly. He said flatly, "Why wasn't I informed? You're not allowed in right now." Chapter 393 Molten Monster. The young master gave strict orders. No one is allowed to enter this courtyard today. If there's anything, wait until he comes out, Lu Hung said coldly. Hearing this, Steward Mo looked helplessly at Su Zimo and Situ Yunfei behind him. "I'll leave it to you," Su Zimo said to Situ Yunfei. Situ Yunfei nodded slightly. The pressure of the Imperial Meridian realm radiated from his body. With a loud boom, endless radiant light gathered around him. Black mist fell from the sky, covering the entire courtyard. All the surrounding guards fell into chaos. As Situ Yunfei held everyone back at the gate, Su Zimo and the others walked in unhindered. Inside the courtyard were several rooms. Steward Mo, familiar with the place, walked into a side room. He turned a nearby vase. With a rumbling sound from below, the floor opened up to reveal a deep, quiet, secret passage. The children are locked up down here, Steward Mo said. Let's go see, Suzimo replied. With Steward Mo leading the way, the two entered the tunnel. The air inside was very hot, with crackling sounds coming faintly from the depths. Going down the stairway, they came to a corridor. On both sides were numerous carved animals. Some held luminous pearls in their mouths, others had torches. At the end of the corridor, they were blocked by a large door. The door was dark gray, heavy and cold to the touch. I don't have the key, Steward Mo said, turning to Suzimo. Suzimo frowned slightly and slashed with his blade. Shadow Tyrant. Endless spirit force gathered on the blade. With a loud boom, sand and stones flew as a large hole was cut into the door. Through the opening, Suzimo finally saw what was inside. The space inside was circular and not too big. At the center was a pool, not of water, but of flaming molten lava. The lava filled most of the pool, boiling and scorching hot, casting a red glow throughout the room. Above the lava hung an iron cage. A group of children were locked inside it. The cage swayed dangerously in the air, as if it might fall at any moment. If it did, they would fall straight into lava of thousands of degrees, hot enough to melt bone. On one side of the lava pool stood an alchemy furnace. Beside the fire pool sat a young man in a purple robe. As the stone door was broken, the young man suddenly opened his eyes. A flash of evil light passed through them, and he immediately noticed Suzimo and his group. He stood up slowly, frowning. Family traitors are truly the hardest to guard against. The purple-robed youth, Lu Feiyong, snorted. Young master, I had no choice. Steward Mo tried to explain, his face uncertain. Who are you? Lu Feiyong ignored Steward Mo and looked at Suzimo. Does it matter for someone about to die to know that much? Suzimo asked calmly. He stepped forward toward Lu Feiyong. Fine. I'll capture you first, then we'll talk. Lu Feiyong snorted. He raised his right hand. A pure white formation seal shattered in his palm. As it broke, the entire underground tunnel changed drastically. Starting from the entrance corridor, the eyes of each beast carving began to glow red. Underground, red lines formed a pentagram-like shape, interwoven and fused together. The lava below started churning, and faint beast roars could be heard. So it's a formation, Suzimo chuckled. You think I wouldn't be prepared? Lu Feiyong snorted. Better to trust myself than those useless fools outside. At that moment, beastly phantoms ran through both sides of the corridor. As the lava churned, Suzimo slashed with Shadow Tyrant. He directly cut down the hanging iron cage and moved the children aside first. Lu Feiyong watched calmly, not trying to stop him. In the end, you'll all die. Might as well save yourself first, he said. As his voice fell, the beast phantoms floated in midair. Then, with another loud explosion, the lava surged dozens of meters high. The phantoms all charged into the lava. Roars echoed as the beasts and lava fused together. Or rather, the lava devoured the beast phantoms. Endless spirit force also surged into it. We should run now, or we won't make it, Steward Mo said anxiously. Shut up. Suzimo glanced at him coldly. Steward Mo immediately fell silent and backed into a corner. Once the lava and beast phantoms finished merging, a deafening roar echoed again. At the center of the formation above the lava, a new monster appeared. It looked like a molten giant. It stood several dozen meters tall, its head nearly touching the chamber ceiling. Its entire body stood in the molten lava. Its surface was a mix of bright red and black lava. Its body was made of blocky, segmented lines. It had no mouth or nose. Its eyes were two burning red pools of molten lava, steaming hot. As the monster roared, the lava beneath its feet churned violently. So this is your trump card, Suzimo said flatly. Hope you like it. Lu Feiyong laughed as he stepped aside. Suzimo shook his head slightly. This molten giant was indeed powerful. Especially its body, it could coexist with the lava below. As long as the lava and spirit force remained, it could regenerate endlessly. The monster roared, and its huge hand, several meters wide, slammed down, carrying scalding lava towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes and quickly retreated to the wall. A loud rumble followed. Where he had stood, a 5-finger crater had collapsed deep into the lava. He closed his eyes slightly. In his past life, he had learned many techniques. But along this journey, there hadn't been much need to use his meridian arts. Now, the blade in his hand, Shadow Tyrant, trembled slightly. Streams of rushing water extended from the tip of the blade. The spirit force gradually turned into cold air, merging with the water flow. Ice began to form on the blade's edge. The temperature around Su Zimo started to drop. Cracking sounds echoed from nearby. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his eyes. Endless spirit force swirled within them. Snowflakes began to fall gently from above. Chapter 394, Searching for the Artifact. 1,000-Mile Frost Domain. Su Zimo shouted softly. He swung his blade, Shadow Tyrant, heavily, stirring up a blizzard of snow and wind. Layers of ice shards began to form around him. Even the surrounding air, space, and spirit force were frozen solid. The monster below roared, its entire body of lava crackling and exploding. Waves of lava surged endlessly. All the molten energy gathered onto its fist as it punched toward Su Zimo. The space split into two extremes. One side was freezing cold, the other scorching hot. As the ice and snow collided with the lava, a massive explosion erupted. Boom! Everyone nearby was shaken by the deafening blast, their eardrums almost splitting. "That's all you've got?" Su Zimo said with a light chuckle. The ice and lava clashed, devouring each other violently. Su Zimo snorted coldly, unleashing the power of creation from his blade. Brilliant light radiated from the weapon, sweeping with unstoppable force and slicing the monster in half. At that moment, snow filled the air, freezing the entire lava pool and the monster along with it. Su Zimo cracked his neck, eyes calm, and stepped on the ice toward Lu Feiyong, who was hiding in a corner. You? Lu Feiyong pointed at Su Zimo, trembling and speechless. "How do you want to die?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "I don't want to die. My father is the city lord of Fearless City. You can't kill me," Lu Feiyong pleaded in a panic. Su Zimo walked up to him. Lu Feiyong was curled up in the corner, his body trembling uncontrollably. Su Zimo slowly raised Shadow Tyrant and placed the cold blade at his neck. Feeling the icy edge, Lu Feiyong trembled even harder. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Lu Feiyong had actually wet himself in fear. "And you dare to practice evil arts?" Su Zimo said mockingly. I'm not worthy. Lu Feiyong quickly shook his head. "Please spare me." "You want to live?" Su Zimo asked with a faint smile. "Then you'd better offer something valuable enough to save your life." "I'll give you anything you want." Lu Feiyong nodded desperately, looking at Su Zimo with hope in his eyes. "I heard your father got some sort of inheritance," Su Zimo said. "Yes, he did." Lu Feiyong nodded without hesitation. "Where is it now?" Su Zimo asked again. "I don't know. I've never cared about that stuff," Lu Feiyong replied nervously. "But if you want to know, I can find out for you." Su Zimo smiled faintly. Black spirit force gathered in his hand, forming a lightning-shaped symbol. He pressed it against Lu Feiyong's forehead, and it slowly fused into him. "What is this?" Lu Feiyong asked in fear. "This is my demon seal. It's now inside your body," Su Zimo said with a smile. "With just one thought, I can make it explode. One big bang, blood and guts flying everywhere. Just imagining it is exciting, isn't it?" Seeing Su Zimo smile, Lu Feiyong gulped hard in fear and said, "You're a demon. Compared to what you did to those children for your evil cultivation, I'm pretty merciful." Su Zimo replied with a smile. "What do you want?" Lu Feiyong trembled, almost in tears. "I want the inheritance your father obtained," Su Zimo said plainly. As he spoke, he grabbed Lu Feiyong by the hair and lifted him up. Go out there and settle your men down. Then go to your father. Either steal the inheritance, or find out exactly where it is and come tell me. If you do that, I might spare your life. Really? Lu Feiyong had thought he was doomed, but now it felt like a drowning man grabbing a lifeline. He asked hopefully, "But remember one thing." Su Zimo nodded slightly. "If you expose me, I'll instantly detonate the demon seal. You can try it if you want." "I won't, I swear." Lu Feiyong shook his head quickly. "Go. I'll be waiting for your good news." Su Zimo waved him off. Soon after Lu Feiyong carefully left the tunnel, Situ Yunfei entered. "You let him go?" Situ Yunfei asked, a bit confused. He had seen Lu Feiyong leaving earlier. "I need the inheritance." Su Zimo nodded. "I don't get it." Situ Yunfei shook his head. "With your strength, the city lord wouldn't be your match. Why not just crush them all directly? Why go to all this trouble? What if the city lord hides the inheritance and dies before giving it up?" Su Zimo asked back. Situ Yunfei paused. He hadn't thought of that. To someone unafraid of death, force wasn't always the solution. "Aren't you afraid he'll betray you?" Situ Yunfei asked.
No.
"Why not?" "Because he's afraid to die." As the two chatted, Steward Mo cautiously stepped forward, forcing a smile as he tried to speak. "Gentlemen, since the children have been saved, can I go now?" "Yeah, you can go die." Su Zimo nodded slightly and said, "You lied to me. You said you'd let me go." Steward Mo shouted in horror. "I didn't lie. I said I would spare you. I never said he would." Su Zimo pointed at Situ Yunfei and replied. Steward Mo froze in fear, unable to react in time. Situ Yunfei kicked him directly into the lava pool. The ice covering the lava had already been removed by Su Zimo, and it was boiling hot again. Steward Mo didn't even have time to scream before being melted completely. Not a trace left behind. "Let's hope you weren't lying," Situ Yunfei said as he looked deeply at Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled faintly, leaned against the wall, and said no more. The children in the iron cage were all unconscious. Su Zimo checked they weren't seriously harmed. Likely just frightened. By nightfall, Lu Feiyong nervously returned through the tunnel. He had already seen the best doctors in the mansion, but none found anything unusual. Knowing how dangerous Su Zimo was, Lu Feiyong had no more intention to resist. "Well?" Su Zimo opened his eyes and asked calmly. "My father keeps the inheritance on him at all times. I couldn't steal it," Lu Feiyong said helplessly. "Give me a little more time. I'll try again." Chapter 395, The Power Outside the Black Hole. "No need, this is enough," Su Zimo said after a moment of thought. He turned to Situ Yunfei and said, "Watch him. I'm going out for a bit." Situ Yunfei nodded slightly. As Su Zimo walked out of the underground tunnel, night had already fallen outside. Except for a few patrolling servants, most people in the city lord's mansion had returned to rest. Only a few windows were still lit. The temperature had dropped, and the sky was cloudless and pitch black. Su Zimo's figure blended into the darkness like a lone god of death, gradually disappearing into the night. At that moment, inside City Lord Lu Yengu's room in Fearless City, he sat in a chair, holding an item shaped like a tornado. He examined it carefully. His intuition told him it held a great secret, but no matter what, he couldn't figure it out. A strong gust of wind blew open the window. Clang! Lu Yengu turned his head and frowned slightly. He put the tornado-shaped item into his storage ring, then walked to the window. He looked outside. The deep, starless night was deathly silent. Just as he closed the window and turned around, his eyes suddenly sharpened. There, by the table, sat a young man he hadn't noticed before. The youth was calmly drinking the tea on the table. "Who are you?" Lu Yengu asked calmly. He didn't shout or panic, because in this mansion he was the strongest. If even he couldn't defeat the opponent, asking for help would be useless. The fact that the other could appear behind him without being noticed proved the man's strength was equal or greater than his own. "You should already know why I'm here," Su Zimo said flatly. Looks like quite a few people are eyeing this thing. Lu Yengu smiled faintly. That only confirms it hides a big secret. Without the strength to control it, it will only get you killed. Su Zimo said indifferently as he stood up. Hand it over. You're not qualified to possess it. Then what about the slaughter race behind me? Are they qualified? Lu Yengu sneered. He clenched his right hand, seemingly crushing something inside it. You'll regret not killing me just now when I wasn't paying attention. Lu Yengu chuckled. As he spoke, the spirit force in the air suddenly surged wildly. An overwhelming aura began to condense. The air crackled from the pressure. Then, beside Lu Yengu, a black hole slowly formed. It spun counterclockwise, and an incredibly powerful pressure emanated from within, the aura of a God Meridian realm cultivator. Su Zimo could feel it clearly. Mist inside the black hole started to clear, and Su Zimo saw what lay within. A palace formed from a sea of blood. On both sides of the palace stood countless people. Su Zimo couldn't see their faces. At the very top, in the center, stood a man with his back to Su Zimo. He wore a wide blood-red robe, draped like a cloak all the way to the floor. Though his back was turned, the immense pressure from his presence alone made it hard for anyone to breathe. A natural aura of supremacy surrounded him. I reported the inheritance to the race long ago, Lu Yengu sneered. I knew I couldn't keep it safe with my own strength. Didn't expect someone would really come to steal it. Supreme Patriarch. Lu Yengu bowed respectfully toward the black hole. Reveal the secret of the inheritance, and I'll spare your life. The man in the black hole said, his voice authoritative. How boring. I wasn't planning to make enemies of the Slaughter Empire. Su Zimo shook his head with a faint smile. God Meridian Realm? Even if you came in person, I wouldn't care. Let alone just a mere projection. You dare insult the leader of the slaughter race? Lu Yengu shouted angrily. Enough noise! Su Zimo snorted coldly. His eyes gleamed sharply, divine might radiating from his body. Endless power of creation, mixed with spirit force, swirled around him. He slashed down with Shadow Tyrant, using the 12th move, Void Oblivion. The surrounding space shattered completely. Overwhelming power thundered down from above. Lu Yengu tried to flee but was suppressed on the spot by Su Zimo's divine pressure. Even though Lu Yengu resisted with all his strength, he was still heavily wounded by a single strike. He collapsed to the ground, vomiting blood, unable to even struggle. And that was only because Su Zimo had held back. How bold to kill one of my Slaughter Empire's members right in front of me. The man in the black hole said coldly. As he spoke, the surrounding space fractured completely, the echo of his voice lingering. Then a massive hand appeared, carrying divine pressure as it descended. The hand looked as if it emerged from a sea of blood. Around it were illusions of countless worlds. Mountains of bones, storms of blood, endless carnage from beginning to end. Just as the giant hand was about to fall, a beastly roar erupted from nearby. The moment the roar sounded, the hand disintegrated mid-air. Then a beast's claw, carrying unstoppable immortal might, swept across. With a single swipe, it shattered the black hole in the air, dispersing it entirely. On the ground, the heavily injured Lu Yengu stared in shock. The massive chaos now stood beside Su Zimo, its eyes like bronze bells, staring directly at him. Just moments ago, this beast had casually destroyed the God Meridian Realm projection with a single blow. He didn't know what kind of creature it was, but Lu Yengu now realized he was in serious trouble. Meanwhile, far away in a distant sea of blood, a blood-red palace stood quietly in the center of the ocean. Inside the hall, almost all members of the slaughter race were present. The hall was dead silent. The blood-robed man at the head of the room had been quiet for a long time. Someone below finally asked, Supreme Patriarch, what was that just now? Someone shattered my projection. The blood-robed man replied flatly. His right hand trembled slightly, though he hid it well, no one else noticed. In truth, there was something he hadn't told them. At the moment the black hole shattered, He felt an incredibly powerful beast aura. So powerful, it could have killed him instantly. Chapter 396. Obtaining the Artifact. He was certain that the one who destroyed his projection was definitely someone who had entered the immortal path. Otherwise, the oppressive force wouldn't have been so overwhelming. It left him with no will to fight at all. Supreme Patriarch, I've already sent people to retrieve the inheritance from Fearless City, but it'll take at least 3 days to arrive, an elder below said. To think someone got ahead of us. Should we put a bounty on that person? As long as they're within Slaughter Empire's borders, they won't be able to escape, someone else suggested. Hearing the discussions below, the blood-robed man raised his hand slightly. He said calmly, "This matter may not be simple. First figure out who the opponent is." Everyone agreed in unison. Back in the City Lord's mansion, Su Zimo looked at the severely injured Lu Yengu and took his storage ring. He forcibly broke the seal on it. Lu Yengu, his soul already damaged, spat out another mouthful of blood. Su Zimo searched through the ring and eventually took out the tornado-shaped object. He didn't know what material it was made from. It felt very hard to the touch, and the tornado form was carved with intricate detail. It was about palm-sized and cold in his hand. If Situ Yunfei hadn't previously mentioned the wind-destroying pearl, Su Zimo wouldn't have made the connection. Since this thing is already yours, can you tell me what it's for? Lu Yengu struggled to ask. Curiosity killed the cat, Su Zimo smiled, then slammed his fist down like smashing a watermelon. Bang! After obtaining what he wanted, Su Zimo returned to the underground tunnel. Handled, Situ Yunfei asked as he looked at him. Take these kids home. Once that's done, your task is complete, Su Zimo said calmly. Situ Yunfei hesitated briefly, then nodded. After parting ways with Situ Yunfei, Su Zimo returned to his room at the inn. Before leaving, he gave Lu Yengu's storage ring to Guishaoyun. The resources inside, as long as she worked hard, wouldn't make her very powerful, but would at least help her protect herself. By the time morning came, the servants might finally notice the deaths of Lu Yengu and his son. As for others in Fearless City who were also plotting against Lu Yengu, Su Zimo didn't bother with them. After staying the night at the inn, Su Zimo left Fearless City at dawn, heading north. He released the Dark Sky Tiger from his storage ring and rode off into the fading night. The northern continent was vast. Traveling north from Fearless City, it would take over a month to exit Slaughter Empire's territory. Therefore, among the 36 empires, teleportation arrays were connected to one another. Using them was the fastest way to travel between the nations. But because the cost of maintaining them was extremely high, the fees were also expensive. Only the wealthy could afford to use them. Most ordinary people couldn't. Su Zimo planned to go to the Celestial Tiger Empire. After securing the wind-destroying pearl, he'd use the teleportation array to reach the Phoenix Perch Empire, where his maternal grandfather's Wunrin clan lived. He had already asked around. There was only one teleportation array from Slaughter Empire to the Celestial Tiger Empire, and it was located in Slaughter Empire's capital, Slaughter City. So Su Zimo had to travel from Fearless City to Slaughter City. After half a month of hard travel, Su Zimo stopped in front of a large city around noon one day. It was a necessary stop on the road to Slaughter City. At the city gates were 3 big characters, Vermilion Bird City. The characters were red, with powerful brush strokes that seemed alive. Staring too long at them gave the illusion of one's mind being pulled in, with the faint pressure of a divine beast. If you asked which city was most famous in Slaughter Empire, it wasn't Fearless City at the front lines, nor the capital Slaughter City. It was this one Vermilion Bird City. From afar, the city's red brick walls looked like a vermilion bird engulfed in flames spreading its wings to soar. The city was vast and grand. It was one of the largest cities within Slaughter Empire, all because of the Vermilion Bird Academy built within it. The Heavenly Tao Academy was the most prestigious academy on the primordial heartlands. It dated back to the ancient times. Its main campus was in the Middle Continent, and it had 4 branch campuses in the east, west, north, and south. They were named Azure Dragon, White Tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise respectively. Back in the eastern continent, Su Zimo had visited the White Tiger Academy. In fact, Lin Ruhu's celestial tiger tyrant physique had come from there. Now that he was in the northern continent, he also wanted to check out Vermilion Bird Academy. Entering the city, he found its prosperity unlike any other city he'd seen. There were students in red robes from the academy everywhere. It was early spring, the academy's recruitment season, so the city was bustling with energy. Talented youths from all over came hoping to enroll. After all, getting into Vermilion Bird Academy meant gaining a connection to the Heavenly Tao Academy. After trying several inns and taverns, all full, Su Zimo finally found an empty room. Once he settled in, he decided to stroll through the streets. The lively atmosphere had rubbed off on him. The streets were packed, and merchants at the stalls called out loudly. The smell of food filled the entire block. As Su Zimo wandered through the crowd, a child suddenly squeezed through and ran straight into him. The child shouted in panic and crashed into Su Zimo. "Sorry, I didn't mean to," the child quickly apologized. Su Zimo looked at the child. Judging by the voice, it was a boy, but his head was completely covered by a large, pure black hat. The hat even covered his neck, so Su Zimo couldn't see his face. He found it odd. How could the kid see anything with his whole head covered? "You okay?" Su Zimo asked calmly. "I'm fine. I'll be more careful next time," the boy said, shaking his head and running off in a panic. "Interesting," Su Zimo muttered, narrowing his eyes at the boy's retreating figure. He reached to his waist, only to find the pouch of spirit stones he'd been carrying was gone. Chapter 397 Vermilion Bird Academy. The pouch only contained some broken silver. Most of Su Zimo's valuable items were stored in his storage ring. And just earlier, he had noticed something different about the little boy, so he didn't expose him on the spot. Yu Qingli ran panting into a hidden alleyway and ducked inside. He took out the pouch he had just stolen, opened it, and found several silver pieces and a few scattered spirit stones. He chuckled and put both into his own pocket, tossing the money pouch aside. "Looks like he's worth something. At least I won't go hungry today," he said smugly, walking out of the alley. But as he turned the corner, he saw someone standing at the alley's entrance, the very person he had just stolen from. Yu Qingli tried to run, but realized it was a dead-end alley, and the only way out was now blocked. Unless he had already reached the desolate Meridian realm and could fly, there was no way to escape. "No one ever told you stealing is wrong?" Su Zimo turned and walked over with a smile. "What do you want?" Yu Qingli backed up to the farthest end of the alley. Alert. "Return what's mine," Su Zimo said calmly. Yu Qingli hesitated, then quickly picked up the discarded pouch from the ground, stuffed the money back in, and handed it over. Grinning, he said, "Hey, what if I told you I just picked this up? Would you believe me?" "What do you think?" Su Zimo asked back. "Take off your hat. I don't like talking to people who hide their faces." "No." Yu Qingli shook his head quickly. "I already gave the pouch back and I can apologize, but I won't take off the hat." Saying that, he tried to run past Su Zimo. Su Zimo chuckled and waved his right hand. A wave of spirit force shot out and knocked the black hat off Yu Qingli's head. But what was revealed made Su Zimo freeze slightly in surprise. Under the hat there was nothing. No neck, no head. Just the middle of a torso. "You're from the three-eyed demon race," Su Zimo said in surprise. He quickly lifted the boy's long robe, and saw a face growing where his belly button should be. It looked strange and bizarre. There was a mouth, a nose, and two eyes, all centered on the stomach. This was the defining trait of the three-eyed demon race. Their heads were not on top like other creatures, but in the center of their bodies. It was said that their ancestors were actually trees. A tree called the three-eyed demon tree, which gained a miraculous opportunity and transformed into a humanoid form, but something went wrong. That's how they ended up with such a deformed appearance. Because of how they looked, many of the 3,000 known races either disliked or discriminated against them. So members of the three-eyed demon race often used all kinds of disguises when traveling. The three eyes referred not just to their face, but to a hidden third eye located within their heart. In their clan, it was said that anyone who could open the third eye was a rare martial prodigy. They were not a large race and not even ranked among the 36 empires. To put it simply, they were a minority group with very few members. Now that his identity had been exposed, Yu Qingli panicked and picked up the fallen hat, putting it back on his head, trembling all over as he did. Then he turned and bolted out of the alley in a panic. Su Zimo didn't stop him. He was indeed surprised to see someone from the three-eyed demon race. With that incident over, Su Zimo lost interest in walking the streets. As night fell, he returned to the inn to rest. Vermilion Bird Academy's student recruitment was happening in the next few days. Su Zimo planned to stay in the city a while and witness the spectacle. After all, on the 5 continents, the Heavenly Tao Academy and its 4 branches were very well known. Over the next few days, Su Zimo stayed inside. Ever since he met the previous generation's infernal lord in the Blissful Empire and obtained the scripture called Demon, he had not yet fully explored its 10 styles. Though the inheritance had a kind of enlightening effect, Su Zimo still felt he hadn't reached the full potential of the battle technique. The Tao is infinite. The deeper your understanding, the stronger you become. But the Tao can never be completely understood. At least in the history of the primordial heartlands, no one had ever fully comprehended it. No one had ever truly opened all 12 meridian gates and transcended. After nearly 5 days of seclusion, the recruitment day finally arrived. Su Zimo stepped out of the inn. The streets were bustling with people. Crowds surged toward the direction of Vermilion Bird Academy. Hundreds of meters from the academy gates, the roads were jammed with bodies. Not only youths from Vermilion Bird City, but also from other parts of Slaughter Empire and beyond. Countless youths from all directions gathered here. Many were accompanied by family. Along the tree-lined road in front of the academy, dozens of students in red robes stood guard, maintaining order. The entire avenue was packed with young hopefuls seeking admission. Su Zimo stood at the back of the line, looking ahead. A commotion nearby suddenly caught his attention. He saw a group of teenagers surrounding a boy in black robes, mocking and jeering him loudly. As more people gathered, the black-robed boy curled up in a corner, trembling. Su Zimo saw clearly. It was the same three-eyed demon race kid who had stolen his money days earlier. "Come see the freak. Even monsters want into Vermilion Bird Academy," someone shouted. "He should be kicked out. People from the three-eyed demon race don't deserve to enter a sacred academy." As the crowd's shouting grew louder, more people took notice. The boy's strange appearance, his head growing from his waist, made him disliked by both humans and beasts alike. "What are you doing?" A voice cut through the noise. The crowd parted as a Vermilion Bird Academy student stepped forward to maintain order. He was a young man in a blue robe, carrying a rust-covered longsword on his back. The sword was still sheathed, but the sheath was so rusted it had lost its shape. "It's Senior Mingyu." Someone in the crowd recognized the student and shouted. Chapter 398, Recruitment Begins. Xiao Mingyu pushed through the crowd and looked at the young man curled up on the ground, trembling. He frowned and glanced around, speaking calmly. "Don't you know that fighting here will get you disqualified from admission?" Hearing Xiao Mingyu's words, the surrounding youths quickly shook their heads. "Senior, we weren't fighting at all. We just said a few words to him and he got scared like that." Xiao Mingyu frowned slightly, patted the shoulder of the black-robed youth, and asked, "You okay?" "I'm fine, really." The black-robed youth quickly nodded. After seeing his appearance, Xiao Mingyu understood why everyone had been mocking him. The three-eyed demon race was naturally slow, had poor aptitude, and was often shunned by other races. "I don't want to see this happen again. Otherwise, all of you will be disqualified from entering," Xiao Mingyu said as he scanned the crowd. "Whether someone can enter the Sacred Academy is up to the examiners, not for you to decide." Everyone quickly nodded, silent and afraid. After Xiao Mingyu left, The crowd distanced themselves from the black-robed youth. He was completely isolated. He got up and stood alone in a corner. Su Zimo shook his head at the scene, then shifted his gaze elsewhere. The tree-lined road in front of Vermilion Bird Academy was crowded with boys and girls hoping to enroll. On both sides of the road, the fiery red flame sun trees had just begun to sprout. Leaves like maple leaves were densely packed on the branches. A light breeze swept through the crowd. At the end of the road stood a majestic academy. A mist covered the campus, and its grand buildings loomed faintly in the distance. The gate was deep red, and at the center of the two doors was a vividly painted vermilion bird. It spread its wings in flight, flames bursting forth, as if soaring into the sky itself, engulfing the entire gate in fire. From afar, tall towers within the academy shot straight into the clouds, glowing red like fire. Floating mystic islands, thousands of meters long, hovered in midair like great heavenly beasts. Red-robed senior students flew through the sky with swords. Others cultivated atop high mountains, absorbing the essence of the sun and moon. With another breeze, the mist returned, and everything vanished from sight again. In front of the red gates, 6 long lines had formed. At the front of each line stood the teachers of Vermilion Bird Academy. From afar, Su Zimo observed the testing methods. One was to give students a brand new meridian technique. After the time of 1 incense stick, the teachers would evaluate how much the student had understood. The other method was to hand students a vermilion bird-shaped jade pendant. Whoever held it the longest showed the highest potential. Su Zimo guessed the jade probably contained an illusion. Such illusions typically target a person's emotions and desires, meant to strike at the weakest parts of the heart. Each teacher could test 10 students at once. It was fast, but the crowd was endless. Locals said that during recruitment, this bustle usually lasted 3 to 7 days. Anyone who passed the first test would enter the academy gates for the second round of testing. What happens inside, however, is not visible to outsiders. Recruitment was proceeding smoothly. Su Zimo was watching with growing boredom when he heard a small cheer rise from the crowd. Someone passed the test at the highest level. Who was it? That's insane. I think it was the 7th Prince of Slaughter Empire. No surprise, the 7th Prince has always been gifted. Though raised in the Deep Palace, there have long been rumors of his talents. In our Slaughter Empire, his name rivals even that of the Crown Prince. Hearing the chatter around him, Su Zimo looked toward the source. In the third line, a young man in dark yellow silk stood proudly at the front. He looked down arrogantly at everyone around him. Though he didn't speak, his expression showed his smugness. Each year, only a few true prodigies passed the test at the highest level. Those who did usually made a name for themselves at the academy. Passing at the highest level meant completely mastering the given meridian technique within the time of 1 incense stick and breaking the illusion within the vermilion jade. Only achieving both counted. The 7th Prince held his evaluation paper from the teacher and strode into the academy proudly. The surrounding youths watched with envy. As the sun set, the sky was dyed red with clouds. The flame sun trees on both sides of the avenue reflected on the road like a painting. The crimson sunset and fiery clouds merged with the trees, casting a red hue across the academy and the floating island shaped like a divine vermilion bird. The whole world seemed painted in flame. Testing ended by evening. Those who got a number token would return the next day for the next round. Su Zimo returned to the inn. He planned to watch again tomorrow, then leave Vermilion Bird City. His next stop was Slaughter City, where he'd take the teleportation array to the Heavenly Tiger Empire. Though it was early spring, winter's chill still lingered. The weather changed suddenly. By night, the sky grew dark and heavy. Thick clouds gathered but held back the rain. The air grew warm and dense. By morning, the sky looked even more ominous, a calm before a storm. The long lines formed again outside Vermilion Bird Academy. Su Zimo recalled that this academy housed the blazing vermilion Godsparrow physique, one of the 100 battle physiques. But with the hell-suppressing demon physique and the 9 revolutions God Tower physique already in his possession, He no longer needed any others. By noon, it was finally the three-eyed demon youth's turn. This caught Su Zimo's attention and also drew many others to look. People generally saw the three-eyed race as dull and strange. Those who couldn't awaken their third eye were seen as the lowest of the low. Yu Qingli took the technique handed to him by the teacher and studied it carefully. It was called Ionic Blade Slash, a mid-tier earth-grade technique. Not particularly hard, but the real challenge was the time limit. Just one incense stick. Compared to other cultivators who could memorize a technique after one glance, Yu Qingli clearly struggled more. He had to stop often and reread the content. Chapter 399, Are You That Immortal God? The pale gray incense slowly burned as the surrounding youths could already barely manage to perform the vain technique. But Yu Qingli had only just finished memorizing the content. Watching the other 9 participants one by one succeed, he grew more and more anxious. And the more anxious he got, the more mistakes he made. "All right, time's up," said the elder sitting at the front, slowly opening his eyes and speaking calmly. The 10 students immediately stopped their comprehension. After all, continuing beyond the time limit would result in immediate disqualification. "Show me the meridian techniques you've understood." The students exchanged glances, filled with competitive energy. They each began to demonstrate Ionic Blade Slash, and the elder's face remained expressionless. Unless a student truly impressed him, he had seen far too many like these. When it came to Yu Qingli's turn, he just stood there, unsure what to do. The elder frowned and looked at him. "Teacher, I couldn't learn it." Yu Qingli hesitated for a moment and finally said with difficulty, "Three-eyed demon race members are all trash. Where do they get the confidence to try for the Sacred Academy? Maybe he just wanted to try his luck. It's not like it costs him anything." The surrounding students, now more relaxed after finishing their test, began mocking him. Many of them already looked down on the three-eyed race. The elder was slightly stunned. In all the exams he had conducted, he had only ever seen differences in how well students learned a technique, never someone who couldn't learn it at all. "All right, next group." The elder waved his hand. He signaled the nearby youths to quiet down. He didn't want to waste more time. "Teacher, please give me another chance. I swear I'll succeed this time." Yu Qingli pleaded with a pained expression. "Everyone is treated equally. There are no second chances," the elder said calmly. "Teacher, please, let me into Vermilion Bird Academy. I swear, I'll work harder than anyone else." Yu Qingli kept shaking his head, begging. "I believe you'll work hard, and I believe if I gave you another chance you might learn this technique," the elder said indifferently. "But you must understand, we're not just looking for people who can learn the technique, we're looking for the best." Yu Qingli fell silent. He thought of his race, of his naive but lofty childhood dreams. Vermilion Bird Academy was his only chance. Only by joining it could he find a broader world. Becoming a rogue cultivator offered almost no chance to grow. He looked up. The sky was overcast, ominous and heavy. Transparent raindrops began to fall, cold against his skin. "Teacher, I really have no other path. I'm willing to bet my life and everything on cultivating. Please just give me a chance." Yu Qingli continued to beg. Even though he knew there was little hope, he wasn't willing to give up. The elder's expression remained unchanged. He had seen all kinds of people over the years. If he opened the door for one person, it would be impossible to close it again. "Kid, if you didn't pass, then leave. Don't waste other people's time," someone in the queue said irritably. "Three-eyed freaks are disgusting. No talent, and still here playing the pity card. If it were me, I'd be too ashamed to stick around." Pitiful people always have some pathetic reason. Someone drag him aside. He's blocking the way. As voices around him grew louder, 2 students grabbed Yu Qingli by the clothes and threw him to the side. His body slammed into the ground. He rubbed his eyes, rainwater and tears mixing together. The rain grew heavier. Others shielded themselves with spirit force. Only he was drenched like a soaked dog. He lay there lifelessly, as if his soul had left his body. Wang Xian passed. Zhou Haoren passed. The elder continued announcing the names of those who passed. People still whispered about Yu Qingli, but he didn't react. There was only one thought in his mind. The chance he'd hoped for was gone. The three-eyed demon race were born slow. Those who hadn't awakened their third eye were mocked by all races. Even though he had tried so hard, he still hadn't changed his fate. In the race's history, a few ancestors had awakened the third eye. But even those ancestors didn't know how it had happened. One day it just opened on its own. To this day, awakening the third eye remained a mystery for the race. The cold rain on his face made him feel even more awake. Maybe it was foolish to try and defy fate. Maybe being useless wasn't such a bad life. The sound of footsteps, tap tap tap, reached his ears. He suddenly realized the rain had stopped falling on him. Yu Qingli slowly opened his eyes and saw a young man standing over him. The man was holding up a rain cover, standing at his head. Still lying on the ground, Yu Qingli looked up blankly at him. "It's you." He recognized the young man. He was the one Yu Qingli had stolen the money pouch from days ago. "What do you want?" he asked Su Zimo calmly. "There are countless paths in this world. Do you want to enter Vermilion Bird Academy that badly?" Su Zimo asked. For a rogue cultivator, what better choice is there than entering an academy? Especially for someone from the three-eyed race. Yu Qingli replied bitterly. Su Zimo understood. Besides these non-discriminatory academies, the three-eyed race had almost no place in other factions. All because of deep-seated bias. "Keep working hard," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "I believe that one day, the three-eyed race will rise and shatter the world's prejudice." Then he turned to leave. He wasn't just trying to comfort Yu Qingli. If the future timeline hadn't changed, the three-eyed race would produce a divine figure in this generation. That person would lead the race, once weak and overlooked, to become a powerful force. Known far and wide. At that time, even the 36 empires would have to take them seriously. Who would dare look down on them then? "Thanks. I guess we're acquaintances now," Yu Qingli said. He took Su Zimo's words as mere comfort. Still, having someone speak kindly to him at such a moment was rare. Watching Su Zimo's back as he walked away, Yu Qingli sat up and gave a bitter smile. "My name is Yu Qingli." "Wait. Yu Qingli, the immortal god?" Su Zimo suddenly stopped in his tracks, turning around in surprise. Chapter 400 challenged them. At that moment, Su Zimo was stunned. The young man lying in the pouring rain, feeling hopeless and defeated, was actually the legendary immortal god, Yu Qingli. Su Zimo had never expected that. He had never met Yu Qingli before, not even in his previous life. Back then, he had been an unknown figure struggling on the path of cultivation. While the immortal god had already shaken the entire primordial heartlands with his name. When talking about how powerful the immortal god was, it all came back to the difference between the path of Tao and the path of immortality. The path of Tao was stronger than the immortal path. This was widely accepted. Otherwise, why would so many beings fight over the supreme heaven's will? But in the primordial heartlands, there were always people who defied the heavens and rewrote destiny. There was the sword immortal Jiang Yun. One sword could cut through the heavens, treating all living beings as fleeting clouds. Then came the immortal god Yu Qingli, one strike that suppressed the heavens, single-handedly defeating 16 zenith immortals. Jiang Yun and Yu Qingli were hailed as the strongest immortal cultivators in the history of the continent. They were even powerful enough to battle grand emperors on their own. Su Zimo had never seen Jiang Yun's era. It was too far away. But he had lived through Yu Qingli's time. That era's immortal god had the qualifications to compete for heaven's will. But before it fully formed, he chose the immortal path instead. He broke the fate of his three-eyed demon race and led the once-weak race to the top, even overturning the control the 36 empires had over the northern continent. He became famous across the entire primordial heartlands. There were too many stories about the immortal god. He was practically a legend himself. At this moment, the rain poured heavily, floating in midair. The pattering sound of raindrops filled the ears. It felt like the entire world had sobered up. Su Zimo looked at Yu Qingli, who lay in the heavy rain on the street. His whole body was soaked and overwhelmed by the downpour. As the rain grew heavier, Vermilion Bird Academy activated a protective barrier around itself, keeping the rain away from its buildings. The Academy's entrance exams continued in an orderly fashion. Su Zimo turned and slowly walked over to Yu Qingli. He calmly asked, "Your name is Yu Qingli? From the three-eyed demon race?" "Yes," Yu Qingli replied, confused by Su Zimo's question. "Do you want to cultivate?" Su Zimo asked.
Ido.
"I'm willing to bet everything for it," Yu Qingli said firmly. "I can help you," Su Zimo said with a faint smile. "You'll help me?" Yu Qingli stood up quickly, looking at Su Zimo in surprise. "But before I help you, you need to prove one thing to me." Su Zimo nodded. "What do I have to prove?" Yu Qingli asked. "Challenge those who just mocked you," Su Zimo said calmly. "Why?" Yu Qingli didn't understand. Su Zimo only smiled and didn't reply. He gave Yu Qingli the choice. It was up to him to grasp it. Even if Su Zimo didn't help him, Yu Qingli would still grow strong eventually. But it was better to offer help now when it was truly needed. Yu Qingli only thought for a moment before stepping forward. He looked at the boys in the queue and casually pointed to a few. "I want to challenge you," he said plainly. "Are you crazy, you three-eyed trash?" "I don't have time to play with you," said one young man in a blue robe. "What, are you scared?" Yu Qingli smiled faintly. "If I'm trash, and you're afraid to fight me, then what does that make you? Worse than trash. You're asking to die." The blue-robed youth glared at him. "Then accept my challenge," Yu Qingli replied. "Fine. Since you want to die, I'll grant your wish," the youth said coldly. The surrounding students made space for them to fight. The blue-robed youth faced Yu Qingli. A powerful aura of true Meridian realm surged from his body. Among these students, he was one of the strongest, while Yu Qingli was only in the Meridian Forging realm. Vermilion Bird Academy's applicants were all young, usually between 15 and 18. In the primordial heartlands, 15 was the age most began cultivating. So most students weren't very powerful yet. Despite being a whole major realm weaker, Yu Qingli wasn't afraid. His head, which was located at his abdomen, and his eyes hidden inside his torso, now glowed as his body turned jet black under the surge of spiritual energy. He stepped back slightly with his right foot, raised his left knee, and then charged at the blue-robed youth. "Trash is still trash," the youth sneered. He thrust the spear behind his back forward, its powerful energy pressing through the air. He had already seen through Yu Qingli's attack path. Because of their difference in realm, he was faster and stronger in every way. Just as Yu Qingli passed a specific point, the spear met him there. Boom! Spirit force surged from the weapon. Caught off guard, Yu Qingli was sent flying. "Where did you get the confidence to challenge me?" The blue-robed youth scoffed. He wasn't holding back. With a swing of his spear, he slashed downward. The weapon crashed toward Yu Qingli, who had fallen to the ground. Yu Qingli rolled several times, barely dodging it. But before he could recover, the youth's fist came crashing toward his face. Bang! He was sent flying again. "Kneel and apologize. I might spare your life," the blue-robed youth said coldly, approaching. "How about you apologize to these nut dash?" Before Yu Qingli could finish, he was kicked again. He lay on the ground, blood pouring from multiple wounds, dyeing his body red. He was seriously injured, too weak to even stand. "I'll give you one more chance. Apologize and I'll spare you," the youth said, his spear in hand, spirit force flowing between him and the weapon. His blue robe flapped in the wind. Yu Qingli smiled, blood pouring from his mouth like a broken faucet. His smile was more like a painful cry. He slowly raised his right hand, clenched it into a fist, and with the last of his strength, punched the youth's leg. Though the punch did no real damage, it was humiliating. The youth's face twisted with rage as the spiritual pressure around him grew even stronger.